Chapter 1160. Outside the Afflatus Dominion. Yan Chuan, Dongfang Bubi, Gongyang Benlei, and countless other experts were standing on the surface of the ocean, looking at the Afflatus Dominion. Endless black gas filled the air, causing the Afflatus Dominion's land to crack. Billowing malevolent aura filled the sky as heavenly demons surged out. Countless cultivators were instantly struck and quickly fell to the ground. Once they died, their blood was immediately extracted. The providence and merit of the sacred halls and dojos in the Afflatus Dominion were forcefully extracted. Ha ha Shwamya, you bastard. You sealed me for 5 million years, but you still let me out in the end. Evil old demon's arrogant voice rang out. To celebrate the birth of this old demon, all living beings of the Afflatus Dominion, offer your blood. Ah! Evil old demon laughed maniacally. This old demon is an ancestral immortal? An ancestral immortal stronger than goddess Jichin? Dog God, who was in human form, trembled. Countless experts were present, but none of them dared to charge in. Vile spawn, how dare you? Suddenly there was a loud roar in the void. Following the roar, the sky above the Afflatus Dominion shone brightly, and a vast heavenly might descended from the sky. Amidst the heavenly might, Yan Chuan saw a huge white pillar that went straight into the depths of the Afflatus Dominion. Boom! The pillar slammed into the ground, causing the earth to tremble. Countless plum blossoms spread out in all directions. Wherever the plum blossoms went, the malevolent aura dissipated. However, there was too much malevolent aura. For a moment, the plum blossoms and malevolent aura clashed. Plum blossoms? It's Sage Shimen. Dog God was overjoyed. Sage. Yan Chuan's expression turned serious. Yes, Sage Shimen is here. This evil old demon is doomed. He's a sage. The strongest existence in the world. Dog God clenched his fists excitedly. Looking at the vast Afflatus Dominion, Yan Chuan had mixed feelings for a moment. Return. Yan Chuan called to the two dragons. Roar, roar. 7 fiends and Dragon 5th immediately gave a long howl, then turned and flew towards the east. Evil old demon's world was a dominion. With the arrival of a sage was there. It would be a pity not to watch such a scene. However, since Yan Chuan had given the order, the two dragons could only helplessly fly towards the east with hidden bitterness. Leave? What? Dog God was shocked. Yan Chuan shook his head. A battle between saints? Yan Chuan felt bitter in his heart. Now that his cultivation was too low, what was the point of looking at it? He had to recover to the ancestral immortal level as soon as possible. Yan Chuan felt uncomfortable as he drove back to the imperial court. As for the battle between the saints that countless cultivators were fighting to watch, Yan Chuan was not interested in it at all. No matter how strong his power was, could it compare to his own body? He had to find a way to dispel the ancestral immortal's restrictions as soon as possible. Seeing Yan Chuan insist on leaving, the Dog God stopped arguing. I am the Dog God. Thank you for saving my life twice. May I know your name? Dog God asked. Yan Chuan of the Great Perfection Holy Court. Yan Chuan nodded. Yendi? Previously I was stupid and was deceived by 100 evil old demon. My benefactor suggested it, but I insisted on doing it, causing Goddess Jichin's evil suppressing golden palace to fail. If not for Yendi, Goddess Jichin's corpse would have. Dog God said with regret. Jichin? After all, she is the benefactor of the world, so I can't ignore her. Moreover, I also benefited from her this time. Since the tomb has been destroyed, let's move it to my Jinlong territory. With me here, no one can touch Jichin's tomb. Yan Chuan said solemnly. Dog God opened his mouth and wanted to ask for Goddess Jichin's coffin, but when he thought of his previous mistakes, he was too ashamed to ask for Goddess Jichin's coffin. For a moment, Dog God was dejected. Dog God, what are your plans for the future? Yan Chuan asked. I don't know. Dog God said bitterly. Return to Jinlong territory with me and continue to guard Goddess Jichin's tomb. Don't let any rascals come near it. At the same time, invite all the cultivators in the world to pay respects to Goddess Jichin. Regain the gratitude of the world. Yan Chuan said. Hearing Yan Chuan's words, Dog God's eyes lit up. Okay, thank you Yendi. Dog God said emotionally. Dog God's biggest dream was to guard Goddess Jichin's tomb. Now, continuing to guard it was the best home for Dog God. Goddess Jichin has been dead for almost 1 million years, right? Are you also trapped in the ancient immortal realm? Yan Chuan looked at Dog God. Dog God smiled bitterly and said, in the spiritual world, I have no chance of becoming an ancestral immortal. Yan Chuan's eyes lit up. No chance? What do you mean no chance? Yan Chuan asked curiously. Indeed, you don't know the way to become an ancestral immortal? Dog God said in surprise. When Dog God said that, Yan Chuan's eyes flashed with joy. Brr. The 7 fiends who were pulling the chariot also shouted excitedly. The 7 fiends had been waiting for 20,000 years without finding a way. Could it be that Dog God knew the way? You don't know? Can you tell me? Yan Chuan asked solemnly. Dog God was slightly stunned and said, It's not impossible, it's not a secret. You don't think it's a secret, but there are very few cultivators in the world who know about it. Yan Chuan said with a smile. Oh, I understand. Dog God's expression changed. Yan Chuan looked at Dog God, and the 7 fiends who were pulling the chariot also pricked up their ears to listen. It's indeed impossible for anyone in the world to become an ancestral immortal. However, I heard from Goddess Jichin that when heaven died, its last remnant will gather all the ancestral immortals in the world to swear an oath to the heavenly Tao and placed a curse on all living beings in the world, the curse of blood. Dog God said. Curse of blood? Yan Chuan was puzzled. Yes, the curse of blood states that all living beings born in this world have a fixed number of ancestral immortals. Only by killing the ancestral immortals can one become an ancestral immortal. Dog God said. This is a curse on the fate of all living beings. Only when you kill an ancestral immortal can your curse be lifted. Of course, there are extremely lucky people. If an ancestral immortal kills an ancestral immortal, one dead will be replaced by another. However, this requires great luck for the ancient immortal to encounter it. Dog God explained. Yan Chuan did not pay attention to the latter part of the sentence. However, the first part of the sentence made Yan Chuan's eyes narrowed slightly. In other words, it's not luck. There's a curse of blood on my fate. As long as I kill an ancestral immortal, the curse will be lifted? I can break through to the ancestral immortal realm? Yan Chuan's eyes flashed with surprise. Killing an ancestral immortal as an ancient immortal. If you succeed, the ancient immortal will definitely become a peerless hero. When he becomes an ancestral immortal, he will definitely become a fierce ancestral immortal. Our world, the weakest world, has already collapsed. Heaven also knows how weak the weakest world is, so it thought of this method. In order to strengthen itself and prevent all living beings in the world from being completely destroyed, it placed this curse. It's to change the ancestral immortals of this world. Dog God nodded affirmatively. Although the curse of blood is too vicious, it makes each generation of ancestral immortals stronger than the previous. What a tragic curse. Yan Chuan nodded his head. Roar. Dragon Fifth let out a cry of surprise. An ancient immortal killing an ancestral immortal? Are you kidding? They're not even on the same level. The 7 fiends exclaimed. Roar. Dragon Fifth nodded. I understand now. No wonder the world has never heard of the curse of blood. The ancestral immortal must have deliberately kept it a secret. Which ancestral immortal would be foolish enough to say that killing himself would make him an ancestral immortal? The 7 fiends were enlightened. Yan Emperor, ancestral immortals are not easy to kill. It's too difficult. Even now, I don't have the confidence to do it. Dog God said. Yan Chuan smiled. The gloominess he felt from not being able to interfere in the battle between Fiend 100 Fiend and the Saints instantly dissipated. Just because you don't have the confidence doesn't mean I don't either. No matter what, this information of yours is extremely useful to me and Great Jin. Yan Chuan thanks you. Yan Chuan said solemnly. This is nothing. Dog God said blankly. Haha, to me this information is more important than mending the heavenly Tao. Yan Chuan laughed loudly. Yan Chuan was in a good mood, but the 7 fiends pulling the carriage in front were conflicted. After waiting for 20,000 years, they actually received such a ridiculous piece of news? Kill an ancestral immortal? What a joke. How could an ancient immortal defeat an ancestral immortal? An ancestral immortal could easily defeat 100 of you. True Dragon Domain. Great Jin Holy Court, Xianyang. At this moment, Great Jin was operating as usual. But at this moment, a group of uninvited guests suddenly appeared in the south of Xianyang. They were all dressed in green and flying high in the sky. There were 21 figures in total, and one of them was the leader. Azure Sky Blazing Sun Formation. The leader of the group, a man dressed in green, said, Yes. The 20 subordinates shouted in unison. Whoosh. They quickly surrounded Xianyang and flew up. Who is it? The guards of Great Jin immediately shouted. However, the 20 subordinates were already in position. Formation rise. The leader in green in the south shouted. Boom. A heavenly Tao suddenly shot up from the north. Boom, boom, boom. To the east, south, and west, a huge heavenly Tao emerged from each of them. Boom. 4 heavenly Tao suddenly surrounded the entire Xianyang. Buzz. The 4 heavenly Tao burst out with dazzling light at the same time. Then, as if they were connected, the 4 heavenly Tao connected together to form a huge square heavenly Tao wall that surrounded the entire Xianyang. Million Dragons Formation. Su Fu's voice suddenly came from Xianyang. Roar, roar. Dragon roars came from the ground. The formation rose from all directions of Xianyang. It defended against the attacks of the heavenly Tao outside. All the green and green got into formation. Only their leader remained in the sky. He coldly looked at the skyward palace inside the Million Dragons Formation. A large number of officials quickly gathered. Lu Buwei flung his sleeves and glared. For Tao gods? They were sent by the Great Extinction Holy Court. Tao gods setting up a formation. This is going to be troublesome. This is a formation set up with heavenly Tao. Yifeng said in a low voice. Lu Buwei looked at the sky and said coldly, "Humph, when we were playing with heavenly Tao, these guys were still playing with mud." Minister Lu, look at that person. Meng Tian pointed at the leader in green in the sky. The leader in green reached out and gathered a portion of heavenly Tao in each direction. In his hand, 4 heavenly Taos gathered, forming a huge 4-colored ball of light. The ball of light carried a powerful destructive force, causing the void to tremble. He can mobilize multiple heavenly Taos? An ancestral immortal? Lu Buwei's face suddenly sank. At that moment, above the Sea of Providence, Yan Chuan's statue suddenly opened its eyes. 2 beams of light shot out. An ancestral immortal? Yan Chuan's statue suddenly spoke. The ancestral immortal in the distance was slightly stunned. The statue spoke? But so what? As long as I'm here, Xianyang will be destroyed today. Lu Buwei. Yan Chuan's statue called out. Here. Lu Buwei replied. You will be in charge of Xianyang's military. If necessary, use the terracotta army. Remember, stall this ancestral immortal for me. Don't let him escape. Yan Chuan's statue called out. Yes, your majesty. Lu Buwei replied. Ancestral immortal? Don't let me escape? Is Yan Chuan's brain damaged? Chapter 1161. Xianyang Chaotian Palace Square. More and more officials gathered. All of them stared at the sky with solemn expressions. The azure-clothed man with the 4 balls of light in his hand stared coldly at skyward palace. Where is Bai Ditian? Also, where is Yan Chuan? The man in the sky asked in a deep voice. Lu Buwei smiled and took a step forward. I am the Prime Minister of Great Zhen, Lu Buwei. May I know who you are? Why did you use this formation to trap my Xianyang? The azure-robed man sneered. The huge ball of light in his hand smashed towards Xianyang. The faces of Meng Tian, Meng Yi, and the others immediately turned gloomy. The group of generals wanted to rush forward in anger. Who? Lu Buwei opened his arms wide, and his wide sleeves shook violently, blocking everyone as he stared fixedly at the sky. The light ball collided with the great formation of Xianyang. Hong? The great formation of Xianyang shook violently. In the midst of the shaking, a storm rolled up in all directions. The interior of the formation was no longer as impregnable as before. Instead, the interior of Xianyang was shaking violently. Countless houses collapsed. The array trembled as if it would shatter at any moment. Countless officials had gloomy expressions. Even so, Lu Buwei did not allow anyone to make a move. Prime Minister, the sage monarch allowed us to use the terracotta soldiers. Meng Yi said anxiously. Lu Buwei shook his head and said, the Holy King's ultimate goal is to delay them. But Meng Yi frowned. Meng Tian pulled Meng Yi over and told him not to interrupt. Ouch. Some of the injured citizens in Xianyang started to cry out in pain. Disciples of the Eastern Faction Depot, save the people and protect them. Lu Buwei shouted. Yes. Lu Gang replied. High up in the sky, the azure-robed man who had almost destroyed the great formation of Xianyang sneered. Xianyang City? Indeed extraordinary, to actually be able to block my 4 strands of origin returning chi. The azure-clothed man sneered. Sir, where do you come from? Why are you making things difficult for me, Great Zhen? Lu Buwei shouted again. Alright, I want you to know that we are disciples of the Azure Divine Palace of the Absolute Palace. The Azure Divine King is my brother. On the orders of the Azure Divine King, kill Bai Ditian. At the same time, kill Yan Chuan. The azure-robed man laughed evilly. How dare you? The courtiers were enraged. However, Lu Buwei waved his sleeves again, blocking the fury of the ministers. Azure Divine King? I heard that the Absolute Palace has 12 palaces. Is the Azure Divine Palace one of the top 3 palaces in the 12 palaces? Lu Buwei laughed. You actually know about my Absolute Palace? The azure-clothed man's expression changed slightly. Who doesn't know that the Jew Palace is powerful? They controlled 6 territories in the outer eastern continent and were one of the strongest forces in the outer eastern continent. It's hard not to know. Lu Buwei said with a smile. It's good that you know. The green-robed man said in a deep voice. Since you are the younger brother of the Azure God King, I presume you are the Emperor Greenfire who became an ancestral immortal 3,000 years ago? Lu Buwei laughed. You're quite knowledgeable. Emperor Greenfire said in a deep voice. Emperor Greenfire? Heh, it doesn't matter if you want to meet my holy monarch or Bai Ditian. Unfortunately, you've come at the wrong time. Lu Buwei said with a smile. You saw it just now. The holy monarch returned through the statue. He's on a trip outside and Bai Ditian is with him. They're not in the court. Lu Buwei said. Where did they go? Emperor Greenfire asked in a deep voice. I don't know where exactly. However, you heard what the holy monarch said just now. The holy monarch and Bai Ditian are rushing back at full speed. If you don't mind, you can wait here. Lu Buwei said with a smile. Pang Tianhe said that the courtiers of Great Zhen are all cunning. Before I came, I promised Pang Tianhe that I would help him destroy Xianyang and kill Yan Chuan. Since Yan Chuan hasn't returned, I'll destroy Xianyang first. Emperor Greenfire said in a deep voice. Wait. Lu Buwei shouted. You want to beg for mercy? Emperor Greenfire, I don't care why you agreed to destroy Xianyang. However, have you forgotten something? This is the center of Great Zhen. If you have the ability to destroy it, the holy monarch above the Sea of Providence will sense it. Bai Ditian will also know. When that happens, I'm not sure if Bai Ditian will return. Lu Buwei shook his head and said. Oh. Emperor Greenfire raised his eyebrows. The holy monarch asked me to keep all of you here. All of you have to wait for the holy monarch to return. Why don't you wait for a while? After a while, when Bai Ditian returns, we can talk about our grievances in detail. Lu Buwei said. Emperor Greenfire was slightly taken aback. He felt that something wasn't right. However, Lu Buwei's words were reasonable. Yan Chuan and Bai Ditian were rushing back. If he destroyed Xianyang and Bai Ditian escaped, he wouldn't be able to answer to his brother. He would wait for a while. Lu Buwei saw that Emperor Greenfire was tempted and smiled. Since there's still some time, and all of you have to wait for the holy monarch and Bai Ditian, why don't you rest and have a cup of tea? Have a cup of tea? Emperor Greenfire looked at Lu Buwei strangely. The holy monarch and Bai Ditian won't be back for a day or two. If all of you don't mind, during this time we can entertain all of you. We can play chess and drink wine while waiting for the holy monarch and Bai Ditian to return? Lu Buwei smiled. Emperor Greenfire. The group of experts in green? Their murderous intent was completely extinguished by Lu Buwei's words. Play chess? Have a cup of tea? Are we here to have fun? We are here to kill. Emperor Greenfire tried his best to look aggressive. Everyone, I don't mean anything else. I just feel that since we are waiting, there's no point in wasting time like this. Am I right? Lu Buwei smiled. With every sentence that Lu Buwei said, the atmosphere changed a little. As they spoke, they felt that something was amiss. It was as though they were old friends who had met. Lu Buwei's words were just right. They were neither close nor distant. Emperor Greenfire looked at Lu Buwei strangely. He felt that something was amiss. It was extremely awkward. We are here to kill all of you. Emperor Greenfire said coldly again. I know. But we haven't killed anyone yet. Let's wait for the holy monarch and Bai Ditian to return. What does drinking tea have to do with killing? Lu Buwei said blankly. Indeed, drinking tea had nothing to do with killing. Emperor Greenfire's brain couldn't handle it. He tried to think of the wrong elements in Lu Buwei's words. Everyone, why don't we do it here? I'll send people to prepare a banquet? Lu Buwei pointed at the square of Skyward Hall. A banquet? The group of people in green looked at Emperor Greenfire strangely. Emperor Greenfire was at a loss as well. He had come with murderous intent. Now that Lu Buwei said that, he seemed to be extremely embarrassed. Cunning official of Great Zhen. Play chess? Drink tea? Leave it for the netherworld. Wait, so what? Trap Xianyang and wait for Yan Chuan and Bai Ditian to return. Emperor Greenfire shouted angrily. As he spoke, he retreated into the array. Lu Buwei sighed slightly as if he was regretting that he couldn't play chess with Emperor Greenfire. In the array, Emperor Greenfire kept thinking. What went wrong in his confrontation with Lu Buwei? Wasn't he filled with murderous intent earlier? Why did it seem like he owed Lu Buwei something? Why did the atmosphere change so suddenly? What was wrong? He ignored Emperor Greenfire. Lu Buwei and the group of officials quickly entered Skyward Hall. Quang. The doors of the hall slammed shut. Minister Lu is amazing. Yifeng praised. Lu Buwei shook his head and said, let's pacify Emperor Greenfire first. However, this isn't a long-term plan. There are too many variables. Yes, just now, Xianyang almost. One of the officials said worriedly. Lu Buwei shook his head and said, no, I asked Su Fu to do it. Everyone looked at Su Fu in surprise. Su Fu smiled and said, I've worked with Minister Lu for many years. I understood with one gesture. Does this mean that our array can stop Emperor Greenfire? One of the officials said in surprise. Of course. Our array came from Mr. Gigu Zi. Not to mention Emperor Greenfire, even if there were two more, they wouldn't be able to shake it. Su Fu said proudly. Minister Lu wants to hold Emperor Greenfire back? That's right. Let them think that Xianyang can be destroyed at any time and that there's nothing to worry about. The Sage King wants to hold Emperor Greenfire back. Although I don't know why the Sage King is doing this, it must be very important. Everyone cooperate with me and hold them back. Lu Buwei said seriously. Yes. Everyone answered. East of Xianyang at the Yellow Spring Road. The array spread, so Emperor Greenfire and the others didn't notice it. At the entrance of the array, Bai Ditian frowned and looked into the distance. Suddenly, a figure appeared behind Bai Ditian. Jin Dayu. Bai Ditian. The Sage King wants you to enter the Netherworld first. Don't let them see you. He wants me to replace you at the Yellow Spring Road. Jin Dayu said seriously. Bai Ditian nodded with a trace of doubt. Time passed. The two dragons pulled the dragon carriage and quickly flew towards the True Dragon Dominion. Along the way, the two dragons didn't dare to delay. Yan Chuan's eyes were filled with excitement. He had just obtained the method to become an ancestral immortal, and an ancestral immortal had already come knocking on his door? He was really lucky. Just as the dragon carriage was speeding. Heavenly Tao combine. Heavenly Tao combine. With two loud shouts, two heavenly Taos suddenly appeared in front of the dragon chariot. Brr. The two dragons instantly stopped. Yan Chuan raised his eyebrows and looked over. He saw a figure standing in each of the two heavenly Tao. And they were both Tao integration. Gongyang Benlei? Yan Chuan's expression turned ugly. One of the two heavenly Tao was Gongyang Benlei, and the other was naturally Gongyang Bentian. The two of them ran all the way and chased after Yan Chuan and the others. In the Hall of Inspiration, Gongyang Bentian had gained nothing. Even Gongyang Benhong had died. He couldn't return to his family. However, if he helped Gongyang Benlei deal with the East Sea Dragon Palace, he might be able to redeem himself. Chapter 1162. Crash into them. Yan Chuan was also angry at the two of them, so he directly shouted at the two dragons. The seven demons? Dragon Fifth. Gongyang Benlei. Even the dog god, who had been sitting cross-legged on the side, was shocked. Crash? Was this a joke? The two heavenly Tao in front of him were one with the heavenly Tao. Is Yan Chuan out of his mind? Gongyang Bentian said in shock. Gongyang Benlei didn't know what to say. However, the two dragons quickly carried out Yan Chuan's orders, pulling the carriage towards one of the heavenly Taos. Crazy. Yan Chuan, are you crazy? I am one with the heavenly Tao. You can't hurt me at all. Gongyang Bentian roared. Without any hesitation, the two dragons charged towards Gongyang Bentian's heavenly Tao. Seeing the two dragons charging at him with such ferocious momentum, Gongyang Bentian's face twitched slightly. The two dragons rushed over. This aura was indeed incomparably majestic. If not for the fact that he was one with the heavenly Tao, he might have been scared away by this aura. Go ahead, go ahead. The body is one with the heavenly Tao. You ancient immortals want to break the heavenly Tao? Dream on. Bang your head against the heavenly Tao and die. Gongyang Bentian roared. Seeing that it was getting closer and closer, Yan Chuan widened his eyes. Suddenly, a green heavenly Tao shot into the sky. The heavenly Tao enveloped Yan Chuan and the dragon chariot. Immediately, it slammed towards Gongyang Bentian. Two mighty heavenly Taos collided above the sea. Hong. Huge waves rose from the sea, and a huge crater appeared with a loud rumble. the moment the two heavenly Daos collided. Gongyang Benlei, you lied to me? Gongyang Ben Tian suddenly roared. Didn't you say that Yan Xuan was only an ancient immortal? Was he just an ordinary ancient immortal? How could he control the heavenly Dao? It was one thing for him to control it, but he was actually one with the heavenly Dao. Not far away in the heavenly Dao, Gongyang Benlei's eyes suddenly widened. With a huge impact, the two heavenly Daos immediately clashed. Under the huge impact, the two Dao gods were competing in their control of the heavenly Dao and their usage of the heavenly Dao. Competing in control? Gongyang Ben Tian used a secret technique to fuse with the Dao in a short period of time. As for Yan Xuan, he was the heaven mender of the clear sky Dao. Competing in utilization? To put it bluntly, the clear sky Dao was created step by step by Yan Xuan. How could he not be better than Gongyang Ben Tian when using the clear sky Dao? Most importantly, Yan Xuan's azure sky path was the leader of the thousand suns. The result of the collision between the two heavenly Daos was obvious. His heavenly Dao exploded with a loud boom. Yan Xuan stretched out his hand, and a huge dragon claw appeared in the void. Boom. Yan Xuan's dragon claw instantly tore Gongyang Ben Tian into pieces. They were both ancient immortals. With Yan Xuan's ferocious nature, he naturally had the strength to kill someone of the same level. Moreover, Gongyang Ben Tian was immersed in this legendary collapse. His heavenly Dao was destroyed by the collision. Before he died, Gongyang Ben Tian only had one complaint. Gongyang Ben Lei, you jinx. Bam. Dismembered corpses filled the sky. The two dragons shuddered and immediately understood what kind of ferocious person the Emperor on Bai Long's chariot was. The dog god opened his mouth in shock. This didn't make sense. Gongyang Ben Tian was careless. He thought that Yan Xuan was just an ordinary ancient immortal while he was a Dao unification expert and could instantly kill Yan Xuan. However, things were always unpredictable. In the end, he became an ordinary ancestral immortal after the collision, while Yan Xuan became a Dao unification expert. He was instantly killed. Rumble. Strands of power of heavenly ways quickly gathered around Emperor Greenfire. Once again he attacked Xianyang. Boom. There was another loud sound. The storm raged in all directions. However, the great formation of Xianyang could not be shaken at all. Emperor Greenfire looked at his palms and was stunned for a moment. The citizens of Xianyang were relieved. Only then did they stop worrying. Emperor Greenfire turned his head and looked around. The soldiers who came to rescue the emperor from various cities had already retreated far away and left the battlefield. In front of Chaotian Palace, the official of Dezhun smiled mockingly. At this moment, how could Emperor Greenfire not know that he had been deceived? He looked at the countless experts around him. Their strange gazes seemed to be mocking him. Was he stupid? Bastard, die. Emperor Greenfire was furious. Emperor Greenfire reached out and a long token appeared in his hand. The token was like a flame. Greenfire token, 1,000 flames incinerate sun. Emperor Greenfire roared. He waved the token in his hand. The 4 strands of heavenly ways immediately spewed out billowing flames. They rushed toward the great formation with the token. The previous light ball was only 1,000 feet in size. This time the fireball was 1,000 feet in size. Boom. There was another huge collision. This time, Emperor Greenfire used a Dharma treasure. Xianyang's great formation finally shook. However, it still had no effect on the inside. Lu Buwei looked at the sky with his hands behind his back. His eyes were extremely solemn. Meng Yi. Lu Buwei shouted. Minister Lu. Meng Yi immediately shouted. I've successfully angered Emperor Greenfire. He won't give up for a while. However, we have to be careful. Terracotta Army, prepare the army just in case. Lu Buwei said in a deep voice. Yes. Meng Yi nodded. Meng Yi retreated. Lu Buwei continued to watch coldly. The various armies of Xianyang made preparations. Boom, boom, boom. Emperor Greenfire bombarded Xianyang again and again. However, the great formation of Xianyang was extremely sturdy and could not be shaken at all. In the distance, the Dragon Emperor narrowed his eyes and watched. Pang Tianhe took a deep breath. What a terrifying great formation. Yeah, with such a great formation guarding the city, who can break it? Emperor Greenfire is an ancestral immortal. Even with Dharma treasures he can't be shaken. A disciple frowned. In the distant valley, Jin Dayu watched the battle from afar and clenched his fists. After all, Emperor Greenfire was causing trouble in Xianyang. Zhang Yi grabbed Jin Dayu and shook his head gently, telling him not to be rash. The sky was filled with flames. Outside Xianyang the land was barren. In an instant, apart from Xianyang, the entire area had turned into a sea of fire. It was endless and filled with boundless flames. A huge beam of light burst out from the token. World suppression. Yan Chuan shouted coldly. Boom. The sky-burying coffin fell from the sky and slammed into the light of the green fire token. The light shattered and the sky-burying coffin suppressed Emperor Green Fire and the green fire token. Rumble. The green fire token seemed to be about to unleash its power. However, it was suppressed by the sky-burying coffin. The green fire token was unable to unleash its power. He stepped into the sea of blood and evil power surged from the sea of blood. No, bastard. Emperor Green Fire cried out in shock. Emperor Green Fire couldn't use his feet. Heavenly Tao, Heavenly Tao. Emperor Green Fire cried out in shock. However, the Heavenly Tao didn't appear again. An ancestral immortal who hasn't reached Tao integration wants to summon the Heavenly Tao from my sea of blood? Here, the laws of heaven and earth listen to my orders. Here I am the heavens. Yan Chuan said coldly. Under the pressure of the sky-burying coffin, the green fire token trembled. It seemed like it couldn't hold on any longer. No, no, big brother, save me. Emperor Green Fire cried out in shock. Boom. A light figure suddenly appeared from the green fire token. It seemed illusory yet real. A man with a dignified face stood on the sea of blood and stared. Big brother, save me. Emperor Green Fire cried out in joy as if he had found his last hope. The man turned to look at Yan Chuan. Ancient Immortal? You are being suppressed by an ancient immortal? The man looked at Emperor Green Fire coldly. Big brother? Emperor Green Fire cried out in grief. The man looked at Emperor Green Fire with disappointment before turning to Yan Chuan. I don't care who you are. Emperor Green Fire is my younger brother. Release him now. The man said coldly. In the distance, Dragon Emperor narrowed his eyes. Azure Divine King? Projection? In the distance, Pang Tianhe's eyes flashed with surprise. Isn't Azure Divine King in seclusion? Release him? Yan Chuan said coldly. That's right. Release him. Otherwise, you will be an enemy of Extinction Palace. Azure Divine King said coldly. Yan Chuan fell silent for a moment. Emperor Green Fire saw Yan Chuan's silence and felt that there was hope. Azure Divine King revealed a look of satisfaction. After a moment of silence, Yan Chuan sneered. So what if you are Extinction Palace? Who do you think you are? Impudent. Azure Divine King glared. Those who stand in my way will die. Yan Chuan's eyes darkened. He waved his hand at Azure Divine King's projection. Bam. Azure Divine King's projection shattered. World suppression. Yan Chuan shouted again. Hong. The blue fire token exploded with a loud bang. No. Emperor Green Fire screamed. Bam. Beneath the sky-burying coffin, Emperor Green Fire exploded. Blood splattered everywhere, but it was drowned in a sea of blood in the blink of an eye. He died without a complete corpse and turned into a meat paste. Dragon Emperor looked into the distance in shock. Sky-burying coffin? How can it be so strong? Isn't it an ancient immortal artifact? Dragon Emperor stared in shock. In the distance, Pang Tianhe was inexplicably shocked. Dead. Ancestral Immortal was killed by Yan Chuan? Emperor Green Fire is dead. Pang Tianhe exclaimed. What a terrifying great perfection. What a terrifying Yan Chuan. A disciple shouted. Master, should we return to the imperial court? Another disciple asked in horror. Return to the imperial court? How long could the great extinction holy court last? Haha, we can't stay in Jinlong Dominion any longer. Pang Tianhe said rationally. In the distance, after Yan Chuan's sky-burying coffin killed Emperor Green Fire, he stood in midair. The sky-burying coffin danced around Yan Chuan. Yan Chuan sensed his fate. Crack, crack, crack. There seemed to be a sound coming from within his body. Bam. A loud sound came from Yan Chuan's body. Rumble. Endless heaven and earth yuan qi suddenly gathered from all directions and surged into Yan Chuan's body. Blood-bathing curse? It's broken. It's finally broken. Yan Chuan's eyes flashed. In Xianyang City, the people cheered and the ministers were excited. Dragon Fifth, 7 demons, and Dog God looked into the distance in shock. Holy King is too awesome. Ancestral Immortal? He killed him just like that? 7 demons exclaimed. Roar. Dragon Fifth was also in disbelief. At this moment, Dragon Fifth was no longer unhappy about being captured that day. What was there to be unhappy about? He could kill an ancestral immortal just like that. How could he defeat him? As for Dog God, he was speechless. On the way here he thought that Yan Chuan was joking. He didn't expect that he would kill an ancestral immortal after returning. Were ancestral immortals that easy to kill? The experts brought by Emperor Greenfire were still fighting, but when they saw Emperor Greenfire being killed in the distance, their combat strength dropped drastically. This can't be real. Everyone looked at Yan Chuan in surprise. Yan Chuan looked at the sky. Ancestral immortal tribulation? Come on. Yan Chuan shouted excitedly. Rumble. Dark clouds suddenly appeared in the sky. Tribulation? So fast? Dragon Emperor was slightly stunned. Others might not have felt it, but Yan Chuan could clearly feel it. Yuan Qi of heaven and earth? His bloodline was drawing on the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth. Yan Chuan's previous super theurgies came from the inheritance of his bloodline. His blood was extremely outstanding, but the power did not come out of nowhere. It was the power sealed in his bloodline during the inheritance. Before becoming an ancestral immortal, he relied on the inheritance to pass it down. After becoming an ancestral immortal, he had to rely on his own power to store it. For example, there was an energy storage space in his blood. Normally, the energy stored inside would explode violently when he used a theurgy. When the energy was exhausted, the energy storage space would continuously replenish it from the world. This was done unconsciously. This was also the reason why Yan Chuan's theurgies were limited and had side effects in the beginning. Now things were different. Because Yan Chuan was an ancestral immortal now, he could sense this space and automatically replenish it. When the time came, it would explode all at once. However, Yan Chuan now realized that this space was terrifyingly large. It was so large that even he had not been able to open it up to this extent in his previous life. Bloodline inheritance? Yin Zizai? No, it's definitely more than that. The bloodline of a human is indeed no weaker than that of a general. Yan Chuan sighed. Rumble. The Yuan Qi of heaven and earth gathered. Because of the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth, the entire sky around the Blood Sea became filled with multicolored light. Tribulation? That's it? Ancestral immortal? Pang Tianhe smiled bitterly. The Dragon Emperor took a deep breath. What terrifying Yuan Qi of heaven and earth! How much will Yan Chuan's strength increase? The surging Yuan Qi of heaven and earth lasted for an entire incense stick's worth of time. Boom! The Blood Sea receded, leaving Yan Chuan alone in the sky. The sky was filled with rosy clouds. The Yuan Qi of heaven and earth gathered in all directions. It was incomparably majestic. Ancestral immortal? The tribulation was over. Ancestral immortal? The officials of Great Zhen were all excited. Congratulations, Holy Ruler. Long live the Holy Ruler. The officials of Great Zhen shouted excitedly. Congratulations, Holy Ruler. Long live the Holy Ruler. The citizens of Xianyang also cheered. Ancestral immortal? The eyes of the seven fiends flashed with envy. As expected, after killing an ancestral immortal they could replace him. But that was an ancestral immortal. The seven fiends were conflicted. First Firmament Ancestral Immortal? Haha, First Firmament Ancestral Immortal? However, I'm still an ancestral immortal. I'm finally an ancestral immortal. Yan Chuan's eyes flashed with excitement. With this starting point, Yan Chuan felt that it was enough. Next, without needing to transcend the tribulation, Yan Chuan would continue to charge forward. Just as Yan Chuan was feeling satisfied. Roar! A deafening dragon roar suddenly came from afar. The dragon's roar was so loud that the earth began to tremble. Not just Xianyang but the entire Great Zhen. No, the entire True Dragon Domain and Xuanzhen Dragon Domain shook violently. The various cities in the True Dragon Domain quickly activated their formations. In Xianyang, the Dragon Monarch, Pang Tianhe, and the other spectators all looked toward the east in surprise. That was because the dragon roar had come from the east. Holy King, congratulations, Holy King. A long voice suddenly came from the east. Gigu Zi. Yan Chuan frowned as he looked toward the east. Congratulations, Holy Ruler, for becoming an ancestral immortal. However, it's a double blessing now. Holy Ruler, you've just absorbed the natural energy of the world. I finally lived up to your expectations and found it. Gigu Zi's voice carried a hint of excitement. You found it? Yan Chuan's eyes lit up. The primordial dragon vein, the location of the dragon head. Holy Ruler, I found it. Great Zhen's prosperity begins now. Gigu Zi's voice came from afar. The primordial dragon vein? In a distant mountain valley, the dragon monarch's expression changed. In the south, Pang Tianhe, who was preparing to leave quietly with his disciples, was also shocked. The primordial dragon vein? Pang Tianhe looked toward the east in surprise. Holy ruler, we found the dragon head of the primordial dragon vein. Holy ruler, should we drive it to Xianyang? Gigu Zi's voice came. Open the dragon head and drive it to Xianyang. Yin Chuan shouted. Yes. Gigu Zi's voice came from afar. Roar. In the east, another dragon roar shook the heavens. Beneath this dragon roar, heaven and earth reverberated with the roar of a giant dragon. The earth trembled. The ground of the entire true dragon territory was shaking. Countless commoners and cultivators looked at the earth in shock. In a city in Great Zhen. Not good, there's an earthquake. Is the dragon pulse moving? No, not that one. All of the dragon pulses are moving. What's going on? The mountains over there are moving. Which direction are they moving in? The earth is rising. A mountain is rising from the ground? For a moment, cries of shock came from all over Great Zhen. The entire earth was shaking and moving. Countless mountains and rivers suddenly rushed away and countless mountains and rivers rushed back. Some mountains and rivers directly sank into the ground, and some mountains and rivers suddenly emerged from the ground. The entire true dragon domain was going through an earth-shaking change. The people of Great Zhen. Yin Chuan shouted. Yin Chuan's voice instantly spread to every corner of the world. The holy ruler's voice. Countless commoners looked up. Great Zhen will undergo earth-shaking changes. Our Great Zhen's prosperity has begun. During this period there will be some drastic changes. Everyone be careful of your own safety. Those who can enter the city should quickly hide in the city. All officials and guards of Great Zhen must protect the commoners. Do not cause any disturbances. Yin Chuan shouted. Yes. Countless officials and guards responded to the sky. Great changes were happening in True Dragon Domain. Boom. In a volcanic region, a volcano suddenly erupted into the sky. Boom. Boom. Almost all of the volcanoes in True Dragon Domain were violently erupting. The sky was filled with flames, and it was incomparably magnificent. The primordial dragon vein? The primordial dragon of the great earth. Pang Tianhe said with an unsightly expression. Chapter 1166. Rumble. The earth in Jinlong Dominion churned violently. Countless living beings narrowly escaped death. However, as long as one was a citizen of Great Zhen, even an ordinary citizen, a large number of cultivators were dispatched to rescue and protect them. The earth rose and fell and the mountain ranges moved. However, everyone suddenly noticed something different. Worldly essence energy? The worldly essence energy seems to have become denser? A citizen exclaimed. Amidst their shock, the citizens also noticed something different. The worldly essence energy was increasing at a crazy rate. The Sage King said that Great Zhen will prosper. Could it be that this is the time? Someone's eyes lit up. Now. Immediately, countless citizens were filled with anticipation. Although many buildings were destroyed in the earthquake, it was not difficult for cultivators to rebuild them. Perhaps a dozen complicated spells would suffice. However, the increase in worldly essence energy was what everyone yearned for. With more worldly essence energy, one's cultivation speed would increase. With more worldly essence energy, each generation would become more and more outstanding. Long live! Long live! Countless cheers came from the surrounding cities. At this moment, this scene appeared in Xianyang. A loud dragon's roar came from the east. The earth rose and fell. Mountains and rivers rose from the ground. In the distance, the citizens saw a huge mountain range slowly moving over. A mountain range? Is that a mountain? That's a dragon head. A dragon head. The citizens exclaimed in shock. Their mouths were agape. A dragon head. It was indeed a dragon head. However, this dragon head was too big. It was so big that everyone was at a loss. A mountain-shaped dragon head. However, this dragon head was at least 10 times bigger than Xianyang. After all, Xianyang City was already the largest city in Jinlong Dominion. In terms of diameter, it was 5,000 miles wide. This was a huge city with a diameter of 5,000 miles. However, the dragon head before them was 10 times bigger than Xianyang City. The huge dragon head reached into the clouds. Clouds had already drifted past the dragon's mouth. The clouds at the lowest level only reached the dragon's mouth? How big did the dragon have to be? That was not all. Some cultivators with good eyesight could see it. After the dragon head, there was a long dragon body. The dragon body was no longer a whole body. Instead, it was made up of countless mountain ranges. It was a vast and endless dragon body. The giant dragon roared, its voice shaking the void. In the distance, Pang Tianhe watched this scene in a daze. What a terrifying primordial dragon vein! Pang Tianhe exclaimed. It is indeed a huge vein. This dragon's body should be able to stretch across half of the true dragon domain, right? This is too exaggerated, right? A disciple exclaimed in shock. Not far away. The Dragon Emperor's eyes also flashed with excitement. Primordial dragon vein? What a great primordial dragon vein! The primordial earth dragon. If my East Sea Dragon tribe obtains an earthen primordial dragon, we will definitely. The Dragon Emperor's eyes glinted with desire. However, this desire didn't last long before it dimmed. The Dragon Emperor smiled bitterly. East Sea Dragon Palace? If we really obtain the primordial dragon vein, it's hard to say whether it's a blessing or a curse. At the entrance of Skyward Hall, a trace of excitement flashed in the eyes of the great Zhen official. Dog God revealed a look of surprise. What is Yan Chuan's background? The 7 fiends and Dragon Fifth were also dumbfounded. Dragon Fifth, is this a dragon? The 7 fiends asked in confusion. Roar. Dragon Fifth looked at the 7 fiends in confusion. The 7 fiends looked into the distance and said, our bodies are 10,000 feet long and we are called dragons. If we are dragons, then what is this thing in front of us? It has dragon whiskers. No, even a strand of hair is bigger than us. If this thing is a dragon, then what are we? Dragon hair? Roar. Dragon Fifth didn't know what to say. Dragon hair? From afar, Giga Zi and a group of feng shui masters were standing on the dragon's head. However, they looked so insignificant that they wouldn't even notice this tiny speck of dust. However, apart from the great Zhen officials, the Dragon Emperor and the other experts all looked at Giga Zi solemnly. This was the primordial dragon vein, and it was attracted by this speck of dust. Roar. As it approached, the towering dragon head roared again. Then it slowly swam around Xianyang. Rumble. The primordial dragon's body, the mountain range, slowly formed 2 huge circles around Xianyang, as if the dragon was coiling up. Then the huge dragon head suddenly sank into the ground. The dragon head sank into the ground. What's going on? How can a dragon sink into the ground? Are you stupid? This is the primordial dragon vein born from the earth. So what if it sinks? Countless people exclaimed. The dragon head sank into the ground and disappeared. However, in the next moment the entire Xianyang shook. Giga Zi and about 100 feng shui masters quickly flew into Xianyang city. Rise! Giga Zi shouted. Roar! A dragon's roar came from the depths of the ground. All of a sudden Xianyang city floated up. It rose higher and higher. The huge Xianyang city, with a diameter of 10,000 miles, and a large amount of land around it, quickly rose higher and higher. Soon it was above the height of the low clouds. Some busybodies flew up and screamed. Dragon head, under our feet is a dragon head. The dragon is holding up the entire Xianyang. What a huge dragon horn. We are all standing on the dragon head. Countless commoners cried out in surprise. This scene was too magnificent, so magnificent that everyone felt their souls tremble with excitement. Great Zhen's capital? I'm a citizen of Great Zhen. I'm a citizen of the powerful Great Zhen. Countless people were extremely proud at this moment. There was usually a protruding bone on the dragon head, which usually meant holding up the sky. Holding up the sky. At this moment, Chaotian Hall was on the protruding bone, and the entire Chaotian Hall square floated up with the protruding bone. Rumble. Standing in the Chaotian Hall square, one could overlook the world. Roar. The primordial dragon let out another long roar and suddenly came to a halt. Rumble. Endless primordial chi of heaven and earth gathered from all directions. The dragon's mouth inhaled and exhaled primordial chi of heaven and earth. For a moment, the primordial chi of heaven and earth around Xianyang reached an unprecedented level. Countless cultivators felt the primordial chi of heaven and earth and suddenly broke through the bottleneck of their cultivation. So much primordial chi of heaven and earth? If I can cultivate in Xianyang, I don't need to go anywhere. With such a blessed land, is there any other place in the world that can compare? Countless people were amazed. Yan Chuan slowly descended from the sky and landed in the Chaotian Hall square. Holy King, with the primordial dragon here, you can stabilize Great Zhen's providence without losing it. You can also draw the providence of all 36 territories in the outer eastern continent. With the primordial chi of heaven and earth gathering, Zhenlong territory will definitely prosper. We don't have such an opportunity in the Great Thousand Domains, Giga Zi said excitedly. Long live the Holy King. Long live De Zhen. Long live. The officials bowed excitedly. Long live the Holy King. Long live De Zhen. Long live. The people of Xianyang cheered. Everything was settled. Millions of rays of light shone in all directions. The top of the dragon head overlooked the world. Outside of Xianyang, countless powerhouses from the outer territories were flying in all directions. They wanted to bring the news to their superiors as soon as possible. In front of Chaotian Hall, Yan Chuan looked down at the world. Since you're here, come out. Yan Chuan shouted. Boom. His voice suddenly spread to the south. It was loud and endless. Yan Chuan's shout made the officials of Great Jin turn serious. The people of Xianyang also fell silent and looked toward the south. The sound waves were loud, but no one flew out from the south. Ancestral Immortal? Since you dare to come, are you afraid of showing yourself? Yan Chuan said again. Yan Chuan shouted. In the distant forest, the Dragon Emperor raised his eyebrows. Had he been discovered? The Dragon Emperor fell silent. After a moment of silence, he prepared to fly out. Suddenly, a beam of white light shot into the sky from a forest in the distance. A sharp saber chi shot into the sky from the white light. Ching. The saber's edge instantly tore apart the clouds and the void where it passed. A white-robed man was revealed. The man's hair was black and white, and he carried a black saber on his back. A sharp aura shot into the sky as he charged toward Xianyang. The man's expression was solemn, and he looked dignified without being angry. Good, good, good. Great Jin's holy hall. Great Yan Chuan. The man laughed loudly. There was no joy in his laughter. Instead there was a grave tone. Yan Chuan stared at the white-robed man. You are Heavenly Saber Weave Lord Song Tianzong? Yan Chuan asked. That's right. Not long ago, I received news that the Jinlong territory is in a state of war. Not long ago, I received news that a disciple of the Zhugong Emperor Greenfire set up a formation to destroy Xianyang. Out of curiosity, I hurried over. Indeed, I came just in time to see such a good show. Killing the ancestor, shattering the heavenly tribulation, and driving the Shilong giant vain. Yan Chuan watched coldly. Domain Lord Song, you are really in a good mood. Heavenly Saber Weave borders True Dragon Weave. How could I not pay attention to it? Furthermore, the Azure Divine King's purplish azure weave is to the south of my Heavenly Saber Weave. My Heavenly Saber Weave is sandwiched between your two weaves. How could I not pay attention? Heavenly Saber Weave Song Tianzong? In that case, where did the other ancestral immortal come from? Yan Chuan suddenly asked. The moment Yan Chuan spoke, Song Tianzong raised his eyebrows. There was another ancestral immortal? In the valley, the dragon monarch looked at Yan Chuan in shock. He thought that he would not have to come out after Song Tianzong flew out. However, the dragon monarch smiled bitterly and slowly flew into the sky. Chapter 1167. Yan Chuan, Song Tianzong, and Dragon Emperor, the three ancestral immortals, stood at the same height and looked at each other. The atmosphere in the sky above Xianyang became heavy. In the distance, the battle continued. The Grand Emperor, Jade Emperor, God of Heaven, and Bai Ditian were fighting four Dao gods, but they were getting further and further away. As for the other ancient immortals, they had already been captured. In the past, the number of ancient immortals who became ancient immortals was counted in the tens of thousands. Great Jin's hidden foundation was terrifying. The four Dao gods, after witnessing what had just happened, were in no mood to fight. They had long wanted to escape, but they were all ancient immortals and couldn't escape. However, the battle was getting further and further away from Xianyang. Yan Chuan brought his officials and looked at Song Tianzong and Dragon Emperor. Since the two of you have come uninvited, may I know why you two have come? Yan Chuan asked coldly. Song Tianzong and Dragon Emperor frowned slightly. Dragon Fifth, who was not far away, suddenly screamed at Dragon King. It was as if he wanted Dragon King to save him from his misery. Are you being silly again? Be careful, Sacred King will punish you. The seven fiends looked at Dragon Fifth with disdain. Dragon Fifth looked at them speechlessly and continued to ask Dragon Emperor for help. Yan Chuan turned his head and looked at him. Under his gaze, Dragon Fifth quivered and opened his mouth, but he didn't dare to shout again. Instead, he looked pitifully at Dragon Emperor in the distance. Dragon Emperor looked at Dragon Fifth, his long eyebrows trembling slightly. What? Dragon Emperor, are you here for Dragon Fifth? Yan Chuan looked at Dragon Emperor solemnly. You worry too much, Emperor Yan. Dragon Fifth made a mistake, so he has to pay the price. It's his fortune to pull your chariot. Dragon Emperor smiled. Dragon Fifth looked at Dragon Emperor in shock. He didn't believe it. The seven fiends looked at Dragon Fifth with schadenfreude. Dragon Fifth wanted to slap them. Yan Chuan wasn't satisfied and looked at the two of them. Are the two of you here for good or evil? Yan Chuan asked straightforwardly. I'm just passing by. It's kind of me. The Dragon Emperor smiled. How about Lai Shan? So what if it is? Song Tianzong sneered. If you are kind, I De Zhen will hold a banquet to welcome you. If you are evil, I De Zhen will let your blood splatter the sky. Yan Chuan said with a serious look in his eyes. As soon as he finished speaking, a murderous aura filled the air. Blood splashed across the sky? The Dragon Emperor looked at Yan Chuan with a trace of surprise. He didn't expect Yan Chuan to be so unyielding. Song Tianzong's eyes flashed with fighting spirit. Yan Chuan's eyes narrowed. The primordial dragon vein belongs to the outer eastern continent. Only the virtuous cultivators of the outer eastern continent can possess it. Song Tianzong said solemnly. Only the virtuous can occupy it? Could it be that cult leader Song is talking about yourself? Yan Chuan suddenly said with a smile. Me? Ah. Although I, Song Tianzong, am the ruler of a territory, I am not so arrogant as to be virtuous to the outer eastern continent. Song Tianzong said while shaking his head. Oh. Yan Chuan frowned as he looked at Song Tianzong. Today, after seeing De Zhen's majesty, Tianzong feels deeply moved. Ever since Yan Di killed Azure Fire Sovereign Emperor, I can foresee that in less than 10 days, Azure Divine Sovereign Emperor will personally come to Xianyang. He will come to destroy Xianyang. Song Tianzong said. So what? Yan Chuan did not think much of it. I, Song Tianzong, lived for the saber. I traveled the world, sharpening my saber. When I saw Yan Di's surging blood sea, I suddenly thought of a person, Sword Demon Yan Zizai. Song Tianzong said. Huh. Yan Chuan looked at Song Tianzong, feeling confused. Sword Demon Yan Zizai is also a powerful person with a surging blood sea. Unfortunately, I have never had the chance to fight him, which is a lifelong regret. Now that I have reappeared at the blood sea, I would like to exchange pointers with him. Song Tianzong said gravely. Blood sea? My blood sea is not his blood sea. Yan Chuan said indifferently. I created the Heavenly Saber 7 styles. Today I am not here to stir up trouble in Xianyang. This is my wish. I will only send out one saber strike. If Yan Di can block this saber strike, I, Song Tianzong, will naturally apologize. How about it? Song Tianzong said as he stared at Yan Chuan. Song Tianzong's fighting spirit intensified. Yan Chuan narrowed his eyes as he stared at Song Tianzong. One saber strike? If I can block it, you, Song Tianzong, will apologize. If I cannot, won't I, Yan Chuan, be the unlucky one? What is Song Tianzong? While casually speaking, he knows when to advance and retreat. If Song Tianzong could kill Yan Chuan with one saber strike, he would have to compete with the Dragon Monarch for the primordial dragon vein. Furthermore, the Dragon Monarch's attitude was extremely calm. Clearly he would not fight too hard. Song Tianzong had a high chance of obtaining the primordial dragon vein. However, if Yan Chuan could block this saber strike and display the strength of an expert, Yan Chuan would not pursue the matter any further. Ha! Yan Chuan sneered. Song Tianzong was much more powerful than Emperor Greenfire. Both were ancestral immortals, but one knew when to advance and retreat, while the other was rash and brainless. Yan Di, what do you think? Song Tianzong asked aggressively again. Yan Chuan could tell what Song Tianzong was thinking. He suddenly smiled. Heavenly Saber 7 styles? Do you know that this is the true Dragon Dominion in Xianyang? If Yan Di wishes to mobilize the power of Great Zenith, it is not impossible. Tianzong will wait and see. Song Tianzong smiled. Shaking his head, Yan Chuan said, Heavenly Saber 7 styles? You only need to send out one saber strike, at most one strike. My Great Zenith is filled with talents. I may not need to do it personally. Song Tianzong's face darkened. Song Tianzong wanted to test Yan Chuan's strength. Whether he succeeded or not was not important. What was important was that he could understand Yan Chuan. However, Yan Chuan did not want to fight him. Did Yan Chuan mean to let an official fight with him? Wouldn't that be lowering his status? This was Yan Chuan's counterattack. Although it was a simple move, it was extremely effective. The Dragon Emperor looked at Yan Chuan with a hint of surprise. Ah, very well. Let's see which subject of Great Zenith is so respected by Yan Di. Song Tianzong laughed. Emperor Greenfire could not compare to Song Tianzong. Although he was the ruler of a dominion, he was extremely open-minded. Yan Chuan looked at Giguzi. Giguzi nodded and stepped forward. Giguzi Jianzheng of Great Zenith's Imperial Astronomer would like to exchange pointers with Sect Master Song's Heavenly Saber. Gigu Zi smiled. Song Tianzong's expression changed as he looked at Gigu Zi. Untalented? Song Tianzong naturally did not think that Gigu Zi was untalented. It was amazing that an ancient immortal dared to challenge an ancestral immortal. Moreover, Gigu Zi had controlled the primordial dragon vein earlier. Good. Song Tianzong's eyes revealed a meaningful smile. The Dragon Emperor flew to the side. South of the dragon's head, Song Tianzong stood in the void and looked at Gigu Zi. Gigu Zi watched carefully. Heavenly Saber's first move, meet me at full edge. Song Tianzong shouted. Suddenly, a vast saber light soared into the sky from Song Tianzong's body. The saber light was like the heavenly Tao, piercing through heaven and earth. Of course it was still slightly weaker but not by much. The moment the berserk aura appeared, the ground rumbled loudly. Boom, boom, boom. With a series of loud explosions, huge saber lotuses suddenly exploded on the ground. They looked like lotus flowers, but the petals were saber-shaped. Countless saber lotuses bloomed, and for a time the ground was completely corroded by the saber lotuses. Buzz! Horrifying saber chi spread out in all directions, surrounding that vast saber light as though it was supporting that saber light. Meet me at full edge. Song Tianzong shouted. Whoosh! Suddenly, the sky-piercing saber light erupted with resplendent white light, instantly illuminating the world. It truly looked like a blunt saber opening its edge. As the saber light opened its edge, the boundless white light suddenly turned into strands of saber chi, chopping down on Gigu Zi. Boom! The vast saber light chopped down vertically, and the boundless saber chi rushed over. The saber lotuses on the ground spun, stirring up the saber sea and causing it to chop down even faster. The scene was extremely majestic. The sky to the south turned into a world of sabers. This scene was like a small valley facing an ocean pouring down from the sky, and its might was vast to the extreme. Countless ordinary people felt a chill in their hearts as they looked at the saber sea in the south. Gigu Zi did not show any fear. Instead he took a step forward. Ignite the earth fire. Howling heavenly wind. Gigu Zi shouted. Then he waved his palms at the ground below. The primordial dragon's head, which had been settled, suddenly opened its eyes wide and roared. Roar? The primordial dragon's roar shook heaven and earth. On the ground, where the saber lotuses covered the south, huge volcanic craters suddenly appeared. Boom! Boom! The volcanoes erupted one after another, blasting the saber lotuses into pieces. As the primordial dragon roared, the void shook. The intense shaking caused a dragon head-shaped spatial distortion to appear in front of the primordial dragon. The distorted spatial distortion went straight for the saber light of the heavenly saber. The dragon head and the saber light collided in the distance. Boom! Tens of thousands of sabers in the sea of sabers crumbled under the impact of the dragon-shaped void. The vast saber light collided violently with the dragon's head, causing the heavens and earth to lose their color. The entire southern void shook violently. Looking over from Xianyang, the entire southern sky turned dark. One could only hear the sounds of energy colliding with each other. The sky shook violently. After an incense stick's worth of time, the shaking slowly disappeared and heaven and earth returned to normal. The dragon-shaped spatial distortion disappeared, and so did the huge saber light. Song Tianzong stood quietly in the void, looking at Gigu Zi with a shocked expression. More importantly, he looked at the primordial dragon giant meridian below Xianyang. He didn't draw his saber just now. It was only the first form of the heavenly saber, but it wasn't something ordinary ancestral immortals could block. Gigu Zi did it with the primordial dragon giant meridian? A roar from the primordial dragon giant meridian could block an attack from an ancestral immortal? Song Tianzong looked at the primordial dragon giant meridian and suddenly felt a sense of eagerness. However, he quickly suppressed this desire. Good feng shui dragon roar. Tianzong has learned from you. Song Tianzong was adaptable and immediately praised. Following that, his figure flashed and went straight into the distance. Boom! A loud sound came from afar, and a heavenly Tao in the distance instantly collapsed. The Tao god that Bai Ditian was fighting was instantly severely injured by Song Tianzong. Boom! 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 Following the same pattern, the four Tao gods were quickly defeated by Song Tianzong. The Grand Emperor, Jade Emperor, God, and Bai Ditian captured four Tao gods in the blink of an eye. Song Tianzong's defeated Tao god flew over again. Four Tao gods. This is my apology to Great Shen. Song Tianzong said solemnly. Yan Chuan smiled slightly. Yi Feng set up the banquet. The two of you? Please. Yan Chuan smiled slightly. As for the Rock Clan, although they no longer roamed the world, they were incomparably glorious in the past. Rumor has it that they were the first batch of living beings born in the world. They are located in the easternmost part of the Outer East continent, Song Tianzong explained. Rock Clan? I haven't seen them before. Yin Chuan nodded. The Rock Clan is somewhat xenophobic. Perhaps it's because of some other reason that they don't allow outsiders to enter their territory. Song Tianzong nodded. However, speaking of which, you and I are going to face Zhu Gong the most now. I'm sure Cult Master Song knows more about Zhu Gong. Yin Chuan smiled. Face? Yen Di, you must be joking. I'm not the one facing Yen Di but Yen Di. Song Tianzong shook his head and smiled. Is that so? Yin Chuan stared at Song Tianzong with a smile of disbelief. The Dragon Emperor looked on with interest from the side. Song Tianzong smiled. Yen Di, you're worrying too much. I've heard that Zhu Gong is divided into 12 divine palaces. In the beginning they only occupied one territory. Later on, the 12 divine palaces grew stronger and expanded outwards, seizing 2 more territories. After many years of recuperation, they once again gathered enough resources and seized 3 more territories. Today they control 6 territories. 2 divine palaces are stationed in each territory. This time they have cultivated for many years. Presumably, their resources are gradually becoming sufficient. The 3rd expansion shouldn't be too far away. Heavenly Knife territory is close to them. Perhaps they will be the first to bear the brunt? Yen Di said with a smile. Yen Di, you're thinking too much. Ah. Song Tianzong laughed loudly and raised his cup. Yin Chuan smiled faintly and raised his glass. As Song Tianzong drank, a light flashed in his eyes. Clearly Yin Chuan's words were indeed Song Tianzong's sore spot, but he did not want to say it out loud. Yin Chuan saw that Song Tianzong did not want to say more, so he turned to the Dragon Emperor. Dragon Emperor? I've been looking forward to the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace for a long time. Yin Chuan raised his cup and smiled. The Dragon Emperor immediately raised his cup and said, Yen Di, you're too polite. If you have time, feel free to visit the Eastern Sea at any time. Ah. Alright, since the Dragon Emperor invited me, I will naturally go. However, aren't you afraid that the Dragon Palace will be lost in Jinlong territory? Yin Chuan asked with a smile. The Dragon Palace will be lost? The Dragon Emperor's eyes suddenly narrowed. Song Tianzong also looked at the Dragon Emperor in surprise. Yen Di, why do you say that? The Dragon Emperor shook his head. I'm sure the Dragon Emperor is aware of the dangers of the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace. I just want to ask if the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace is ready? Yin Chuan asked again. The Dragon Emperor raised his eyebrows and his previous indifference disappeared. He looked at Yin Chuan with a trace of caution in his eyes. Yen Di, you can't do anything about the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace, right? There was a trace of melancholy in the Dragon Emperor's voice. He was also dissatisfied with Yin Chuan's words. After all, the Dragon Emperor was facing a force stronger than the 3 superpowers of the Outer East continent. It was the Great Zhou Imperial Court. Would Yin Chuan dare to do anything about it? Yin Chuan smiled and said, The Dragon Emperor has never tried. How would you know that I can't do anything about it? The Dragon Emperor's eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of surprise. Obviously he didn't want Yin Chuan to interfere. Ahaha. Dragon Emperor, Great Zhen doesn't have any other intentions. I just feel that the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace is just waiting for death. Why haven't you thought of forming an alliance? Yin Chuan smiled. Song Tianzong narrowed his eyes and looked at Yin Chuan and the Dragon Emperor in surprise. Yin Chuan was trying to rope in the Dragon Emperor? Wasn't he trying to get the Dragon Emperor to help him deal with the Azure Divine King? Alliance? Ahaha. The Dragon Emperor laughed. He had naturally thought of this too. Great Jin does want to form an alliance with you, Dragon Emperor. However, don't worry. I want to form an alliance with the Dragon Emperor after defeating the Azure Divine King. You don't have to worry about me using you. Yin Chuan said, honestly. The Dragon Emperor blushed slightly and took a sip of wine. If you form an alliance with Great Jin, I hope that the Dragon Emperor will have a title in Great Jin. Just like Bai Ditian, you will be the supreme beast of Great Jin. You and I will not be under any control. We will form a close alliance and help each other. If Great Zhou attacks, Great Jin will help you. Yin Chuan said solemnly. Indeed, the dragon race does not like to form alliances. I appreciate Great Jin's good intentions. The Dragon Emperor sneered. Haha, Dragon Emperor, you don't think that I am interested in your East Sea CI, right? Yin Chuan laughed. CI of the East Sea? Song Tianzong's eyes lit up. What was that? Phew. The Dragon Emperor suddenly stood up in shock. How did you know? The Dragon Emperor's eyes were instantly filled with intense killing intent. Yan Xuan looked at the Dragon Emperor and smiled, waiting for him to calm down. After a while, the Dragon Emperor finally calmed down. However, his eyes were still filled with uncertainty. CI? This was the Dragon Emperor's secret. Less than 10 people in the world knew about the CI of the East Sea. In the East Sea Dragon Palace, even the Dragon Kings had never heard of it. How could Yan Xuan expose the Dragon Emperor's secret? Dragon Emperor, I said it to let you know that although I know about the CI, I do not care. I only hope to form an alliance with the East Sea Dragon Palace. Don't worry. I will not have any designs on your CI. I will not touch it. I can even help you defend it. Yan Xuan said with a smile. The Dragon Emperor's eyes kept changing. Even after many years of maintaining his composure, he could not maintain his composure at this moment. Dragon Emperor, you should know that your East Sea Dragon Palace is in the East Sea. If you do not form alliances, you will be destroyed when the Great Calamity arrives. Can you stop it? Aha. You know best that if you cannot, many of the East Sea's dragon race will die with you. You will not be able to protect the CI. Dragon Emperor, you should be clear about my Yan Xuan's reputation. Yan Xuan repeated. At the side, Song Tianzong narrowed his eyes. Yan Xuan's words revealed too much information. Chapter 1170. With the end immortal sword hanging, a domineering killing intent rushed in all directions. The domineering killing intent caused Song Tianzong's expression to change drastically. How is this possible? This killing intent? It's comparable to Yan Zizai's infinite pain sword? Song Tianzong was shocked. Song Tianzong was shocked. Purple God King and Azure God King focused their attention. This was the first time they saw such a ferocious sword. Sun Wukong hung the end immortal sword and flew to the west. The second sword, Immortal Trapping Sword, hung in the west. Boom. The sky and earth turned green. The same killing intent as the end immortal sword rushed towards the crowd. The same killing intent. No, when the two swords hung, the effect seemed to have increased. The killing intent was several times stronger. Something's wrong, Azure God King. Purple God King's face sank. What a ferocious sword. Something is wrong. You go and take it. Azure God King looked at a Dao God and said, yes. The Dao God took a step forward cautiously. The Dao God also felt the terror of the end immortal sword and did not dare to be careless. He took a step forward and attacked the heavenly Dao. Rumble. The huge heavenly Dao rushed towards the end immortal sword. When the heavenly Dao was 10 zhang away from the end immortal sword, the end immortal sword seemed to have sensed the attack and its killing intent soared. Boom. Around the end immortal sword, a storm of black sword chi swept up. Bang. The Dao God counterattacked and shattered the heavenly Dao. At the same time, a black light flashed and the Dao God quickly dodged. Xing. The Dao God suddenly screamed. The Dao God's right arm was cut in half by the black light from the end immortal sword. My right arm. My right arm. The Dao God grabbed his right arm and fled with a hoarse roar. My right arm. The Dao God was still screaming. What are you shouting for? Just reattach it. Azure God King's face sank. No, Azure Divine King, my right arm, this sword light not only cut off my right arm, it also cut off my divine soul. My soul was cut off an arm so painful my soul is in so much pain. The Dao God roared in shock. Soul? Even souls could be severed? Moreover, it was merely a sword light. At this moment, Sun Wukong suddenly hung the immortal culling sword in the south. Ching. A beam of blood-red light soared into the sky, and the killing intent in all directions surged again. It was 10 times stronger than before. Holding the last immortal slaying sword, Sun Wukong sneered. Something's not right. Azure Divine King, this sword formation is too demonic, too demonic. Don't wait any more, attack. I'll deal with that brat. You quickly break the formation and destroy Xianyang. The Violet Divine King's expression changed. Good. The Azure Divine King shouted. Boom. The two great God Kings pounced forward at nearly the same time. The Azure Divine King rushed towards the extinguishing immortal sword while the Violet Divine King rushed towards Sun Wukong's exterminating immortal sword. The two of them each wielded a long sword and slashed at immortal extermination and immortal extermination. Ha 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 ha. Sun Wukong sneered. The immortal exterminating sword in his hand slashed out. Similarly, there were two purple swords. They collided with each other. The purple sword of the Violet Divine King erupted with a dazzling purple light, as if it was a gigantic sword astral that was surrounded by rolling purple mist. As for the Immortal Extermination Sword, its sword astral appearance was merely an enlarged version of the Immortal Extermination Sword. The two swords clashed. Boom! A great destructive sword intent rushed over. The mist on the Violet Divine King's purple sword dispersed with a loud bang. The purple sword aura was instantly shattered. Within the purple sword there was an explosive lightning aura. A killing sword intent rushed into the Violet Divine King's body. Boom! The Violet Divine King retreated 10 zhang, his face full of shock. On the other side, the Azure Divine King's sword slashed at Immortal Extermination Sword. Boom! The Immortal Extermination Sword intent collided with the Violet Divine King's sword intent. Boom! The Azure Divine King hurriedly retreated 10 zhang as well. The two God Kings returned empty-handed? In the distant valley, Song Tianzong watched this scene in shock. How was this possible? It was just two swords. The Violet Divine King and the Azure Divine King were ancestral immortals who were stronger than him. They couldn't even defeat two swords? And the Death Sword? This is impossible. Song Tianzong exclaimed. The two God Kings were the same. Ha 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 ha. Sun Wukong laughed arrogantly. At this moment, the void suddenly shook slightly. Buzz. As the void shook, an illusory figure slowly appeared. The moment the illusory figure appeared, a vast aura spread out. Sun Wukong raised his eyebrows. The Azure Divine King and the Violet Divine King were surprised. Greetings, Palace Lord. The two God Kings immediately bowed. After the two deity kings bowed, the 10 Dao gods came to their senses. Greetings, Palace Lord. The 10 Dao gods shouted. In the distance, Song Tianzong's eyes flashed with shock. Palace Lord Zhu Palace? His projection? Why would his projection appear here? Song Tianzong said in shock. The projection was dressed in a black robe and wore a black ferocious mask on his face. No one could see his face clearly. Palace Lord Zhu Palace? In Skyward Palace, Yan Chuan narrowed his eyes. All these years, Yan Chuan had collected a large amount of information and knew that Zhu Palace had a palace lord. However, no one had seen him before. Other than the 12 palace lords of Zhu Palace, the others who had seen Palace Lord Zhu Palace were all dead. Celestial Slaying Sword Formation? Palace Lord Zhu Palace looked around. His voice was hoarse. You recognize it? Sun Wukong was surprised. Azure Divine King, Violet Divine King, how did you offend him? Palace Lord Zhu Palace asked in a deep voice. The two God Kings looked at Palace Lord Zhu Palace in shock. The two naturally knew that he was the owner of Celestial Slaying Sword. However, we didn't offend him. It was just a coincidence. Azure Divine King explained immediately. A coincidence? Palace Lord Zhu Palace asked in a hoarse voice. Yes. Violet Divine King nodded immediately. Since it's a coincidence, leave immediately. Go back. Palace Lord Zhu Palace said. After speaking, the illusory figure of Palace Lord Zhu Palace gradually disappeared. There was only an order. Violet Divine King and Azure Divine King looked at each other. Azure Divine King's eyes flashed with unwillingness. However, Violet Divine King said helplessly, Palace Lord has given the order. Let's go. Azure Divine King looked into the distance and his face turned ugly. Go. Azure Divine King turned around and shouted. Song Tianzong looked at this scene blankly from afar. It's over? At the entrance of Skyward Palace, Yan Chuan sneered, Azure Divine King? Is my Great Jin a place where you can come and go as you wish? Yan Chuan's shout reverberated through Xianyang. Song Tianzong looked over and was surprised. What was Yan Chuan doing? Azure Divine King and Violet Divine King are leaving. Instead of rejoicing, you want to cause trouble? Do you know how strong they are? Azure Divine King looked at Yan Chuan coldly. Azure Divine King was naturally unwilling. However, Palace Lord Zhu Palace had given the order and he had to follow it. Go. Azure Divine King ignored Yan Chuan. Yan Chuan snorted coldly. Then he waved his hand and an azure-colored soul suddenly appeared in his palm. Big brother, save me. The azure-colored soul suddenly screamed. Azure Divine King, who was about to leave, showed a sullen expression. He suddenly looked over. The soul in Yan Chuan's palm was none other than the Azure Fire Sovereign Emperor's soul. Azure Fire? Azure Divine King's expression changed. In the distance, Song Tianzong's eyes goggled. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. That day I saw it clearly. After the Azure Fire Sovereign Emperor died, his soul definitely entered the netherworld realm. How can it be here? Could it be that Yan Chuan went to the netherworld realm? He even found the azure fire sovereign emperor's soul in the vast netherworld realm? Song Qianzong exclaimed. Song Qianzong did not understand. Both the Yang realm and the netherworld realm were under Great Jin's control. Dead. If one died in Great Jin's territory, their soul could not escape Great Jin's territory. In the netherworld realm's myriad ghost domain, Azure Divine King sent troops to search and quickly found the Azure Fire Sovereign Emperor's soul. Although the Azure Fire Sovereign Emperor's soul was stronger than ordinary souls, he did not bring his strength with him when he was alive. Hence he was quickly captured. While Azure Divine King was still in shock, Yan Chuan clenched his fist. Boom. The Azure Fire Sovereign Emperor's soul was instantly crushed and scattered. In the distance, Song Qianzong looked at Yan Chuan in a daze. Was Yan Chuan going to become enemies with Azure Divine King? Was Jiang Yi crushing the Azure Fire Sovereign Emperor's soul in front of him? Bastard. Azure Divine King flew into a rage. Also, aren't you looking for Bai Ditian? Bai Ditian. Yan Chuan shouted. Whoosh. A white figure suddenly flew close to him. Bai Ditian had a baleful aura as he looked at Azure Divine King with hatred. This was the hatred of stealing one's wife and killing one's son. After the interrogation over the past few days, everything was revealed. Bai Ditian's wife had been trapped in the purple-green weave by Azure Divine King. Although he had not forced her to do anything, he had forcefully made her his concubine. He had forced her. How could Bai Ditian not feel hatred and resentment? Hatred? From the moment he received this news, a hatred had been formed. Bai Ditian hated that he could not eat Jiang Yi's flesh, bones, blood, and skin. At this moment, Yan Chuan naturally expressed his stance to Bai Ditian. Dezhen will always be on your side. Bai Ditian was extremely grateful. At this moment, Bai Ditian completely approved of Dezhen. Bai Ditian? Azure Divine King's eyes hardened. Azure Divine King, the Palace Lord has ordered us to return immediately. Purple Divine King said with a frown. Purple Divine King looked at Yan Chuan meaningfully. He suddenly knew what Yan Chuan wanted to do. However, this Yan Chuan was too arrogant. How dare he? Yan Chuan was not afraid of them. Chapter 1171. Boom. When the Immortal Slaying Sword formation was deployed, the entire dragon head of Xianyang seemed to be trembling. Countless mountain rocks seemed to have escaped from the earth's gravity and slowly floated upwards. Sword Chi raged. The four-colored sword Chi enveloped everything in the formation, making it impossible to see what was inside. In the sky, the Immortal Slaying Sword formation pierced through the 9 heavens. Countless clouds revolved around the sword formation, causing the sky to darken. The entire Xianyang was filled with a murderous aura. Wherever the slaughter passed, some small lakes and rivers were instantly frozen. In a valley in the west, bewilderment flashed across Song Qianzong's eyes. No wonder the Palace Lord of the Jew Palace was unwilling to clash with the master of this sword formation. Just a magic treasure is already so ferocious? Song Qianzong said in shock. Wrong? What did Yan Chuan mean? He wanted to kill the Violet God King and Azure God King on the spot? Earlier he did not allow the two of them to leave because he wanted to kill them? Song Qianzong exclaimed in shock. The Azure God King was a character that even Song Qianzong feared. But now Yan Chuan actually wanted to kill the Azure God King and Violet God King? Didn't he just become an ancestral immortal? Song Qianzong found this rather unbelievable. At this moment he turned to look in all directions. There were 10 Tao gods in all directions, and there were 10 experts surrounding each of them. Rumble. For a moment, the 10 Tao gods did not reveal their ferocity. On the contrary, roar. Bastard. I am a Tao god. Ancient immortal? Why are they all ancient immortals? 10 ancient immortals besieged a Tao god. Great Jin sent out 100 ancient immortals at once? In the distance, the group of Tao gods could not merge with the Tao. At most, they were peak ancient immortals. Indeed, fighting one ancient immortal would not be a problem. Fighting 2 or 3 ancient immortals would not be a problem either. More importantly, he was fighting 10 of them. Furthermore, the Song Qianzong did not have information on many of these 10 ancient immortals. To be able to casually take out 100 ancient immortals, did that mean that Great Jin still had ancient immortals? Right, there were definitely more. At the very least, Meng Tian and Wang Jian weren't among them. Song Qianzong's heart skipped a beat. Is this still the newly promoted Holy Court? So many ancient immortals had appeared in a world of mortals? Boom. With Bai Ditian and the others in the lead, they slaughtered crazily. Bai Ditian hated the fact that his wife had been snatched away, so he was naturally furious. Inside the Immortal Slaying Sword formation, the four swords sealed off the void. Yan Chuan, Sun Wukong, the Azure God King, and the Purple God King were sealed within. As soon as he entered the formation, Yan Chuan looked around. Sword chi surged in all directions as well as endless black fog. This made Yan Chuan unable to see through the Immortal Extermination Sword formation. Immortal Slaying Sword formation? Was there a change? Ha Tong Tian is actually still on guard against me. Yan Chuan revealed a faint smile. The two ancestral immortals stared at the sky in shock as well. Immortal Slaying Sword formation? Isolating the inside from the outside? I can't feel the heavenly Tao. The Violet Divine King's expression changed drastically. Heavenly Tao. Me too. The Azure Divine King's expression was extremely ugly. Within the Immortal Slaying Sword formation, you still want to sense the heavenly Tao. Yan Chuan revealed a cold smile. Yendi, are you really going to kill them? Sun Wukong frowned. Looking at Sun Wukong, Yan Chuan smiled. I know what you're worried about. There's no need for you to do anything. Just help me hold one of them back for now. Chapter 1172. Within the Immortal Extermination Sword formation, the sea of fire and blood enveloped the Azure Divine King and Yan Chuan. On the other side, Sun Wukong controlled the Immortal Extermination Sword formation to delay the Violet Divine King. Rumble. The Violet Divine King was in a sorry state, but this was only delaying. It's been 20 hours. What a powerful Immortal Extermination Sword formation. It's so powerful even when hidden? The Violet Divine King's eyes flashed with shock. You should be honored. In the current world, you are number one in the Immortal Extermination Sword formation. Sun Wukong laughed. He turned his head to look not far away. Clearly he was puzzled. Why was Yan Chuan fighting for so long? 20 hours had passed and the victor was still not decided? And in this split second, the Violet Divine King seemed to have found an opportunity and swung the purple sword in his hand. Boom. After clashing with the four swords, the Violet Divine King shot towards the sea of blood. Break for me. The Violet Divine King slashed at the sea of blood. Boom. The sea of blood split apart, revealing Yan Chuan and the Azure Divine King. The sky-burying coffin clashed with the Azure Divine Sword. Both of their clothes were slightly tattered, and their other hands were facing each other's palms. Yan Chuan's eyes were ferocious. The Azure Divine King's eyes were also filled with shock. Boom. The sea of blood and the sea of fire were split apart by the Violet Divine King. Yan Chuan's eyes narrowed. His right hand suddenly turned into a claw and grabbed at the Azure Divine King's right arm. Not good. The Azure Divine King's face changed. Shit. The Violet Divine King's face also changed. The Violet Divine King's palm struck towards Yan Chuan, wanting to force Yan Chuan to give up on the Azure Divine King's claw. But at this time, how could Yan Chuan give up? His right claw broke through the Azure Divine King's palm strike at an even faster speed and grabbed his right arm. Rip. With a fierce aura, Yan Chuan tore it apart. Roar. The Azure Divine King roared in pain. And the Violet Divine King's palm was also close. Hastily, Yan Chuan met the attack with his left palm. The power of the sky-burying coffin weakened, but it still managed to block the green sword. A purple light rushed towards Yan Chuan's left palm. Boom. Yan Chuan paused. He turned his head and glared at the Violet God King. Roar. The Azure Divine King howled in pain. The Azure Divine King's right arm was torn off by Yan Chuan. Fresh blood instantly drenched his azure robes. Yan Chuan. The Azure Divine King roared. The Violet Divine King repelled Yan Chuan with a palm strike, but he was unwilling to continue fighting. The situation is not right. Let's go back first. Purple-green confluence. The Violet Divine King shouted. The long sword in his hand stabbed towards the Azure Divine King. The Azure Divine King's azure sword also stabbed over. When the two swords collided, a dazzling light suddenly burst out from the tip of the swords. Boom. A huge force erupted, and the sea of blood and the sea of fire exploded. The Immortal Extermination Sword formation suddenly shook, and a crack was suddenly exposed. Whoosh. The Violet Divine King and the one-armed Azure Divine King were instantly sent flying. Not good. Sun Wukong's face sank. Yan Chuan looked at the outside world through the crack. Yan Chuan, I will be back. I will turn Xianyang into a living hell. Roar. The Azure Divine King held onto his severed arm and roared at Yan Chuan. All the Tao gods outside were gone. The two of them naturally understood the result. At this moment they fled towards the south with an intense unwillingness. Yan Chuan lifted the severed arm of the Azure Divine King and squeezed it. Boom! The severed arm of the Azure Divine King turned into dust. Roar! The Azure Divine King roared with hatred from afar. Chapter 1173. Bai Qi returns to his position. The dragon chariot pulled Yan Chuan south. The terracotta soldiers surrounded the area as the army advanced toward Heavenly Saber Weave. 100,000 soldiers came with great momentum. The terracotta soldiers were not ancestral immortals. Naturally, they were not as fast as the Azure God King. However, they did not stop and finally arrived at Heavenly Saber Weave. Guiguzi, Bai Ditian, Meng Yi, Sun Wukong, and Song Tianzong stood on the balcony in front of the chariot. Song Tianzong looked at Yan Chuan's majestic dragon chariot and then looked at the large saber he rode on every time he traveled. No matter how he looked at it, Song Tianzong felt shabby. He looked at Yan Chuan speechlessly. Did all emperors like to show off? Yan Di. Song Tianzong frowned. Yan Chuan was puzzled. You're leaving just like that? Xianying is empty. Aren't you worried that someone will cause trouble? Not to mention others. If the dragon monarch goes, what will happen to Great Jin's primordial dragon vein? Song Tianzong asked. Yan Chuan and Guiguzi were here? What if an ancestral immortal went to Xianying? Ancestral immortal? There's no need to worry. Yan Chuan shook his head and said with certainty. Oh. Song Tianzong narrowed his eyes. Yan Chuan's casual attitude was not fake. Ancestral immortal? There's no need to worry? Could it be that Great Jin had the strength to fight an ancestral immortal? When he thought of this, Song Tianzong's heart churned. Which bastard collected the information on Great Jin? Was this considered weak? The group moved extremely quickly. The army of 100,000 quickly arrived at a training ground. The training ground was surrounded by blade-like mountains that pierced into the clouds. A sea of virtuous clouds churned in the sky. Above the virtuous clouds, thousands of avatars could be seen. Heavenly Saber Training Ground. Yan Chuan said solemnly. As the army of 100,000 flew over, hundreds of experts suddenly flew over from afar. Stop. How dare you? A loud shout came from afar. Where did this army come from? How dare you be so impudent in my Heavenly Saber Training Ground? A shout exploded in the air as a powerful aura pressed over. Ancestral immortal again? Guiguzi's expression changed. Whoosh. A white-robed man suddenly appeared in front of the 100,000-strong army. Second brother, it's me. Song Tianzong called out. Oh. The white-robed man paused slightly. Swish. The white-robed man approached and looked at the crowd in surprise. This is my younger brother, Song Tianren. Song Tianzong introduced. This is the great perfection sage King Yan Chuan. Song Tianzong introduced. Song Tianren was slightly surprised. Why was big brother so serious? However, Song Tianren wasn't as rash as Monarch Greenfire. He immediately bowed and said, Greetings, Sage King de Zhen. Yan Chuan smiled and nodded. Big brother, you guys are? Song Tianren asked in confusion. Yan Chuan looked at Song Tianzong and said, Sect Master Song, I hope that we can officially battle the Azure God King and Violet God King within a month. Song Tianren was slightly taken aback. What was going on? Against the Azure Divine King? Purple God King? Song Tianzong's face twitched slightly. However, he still nodded and said, All right. I will inform the other Weave Lords. Half of them have already made up their minds, but the other half are hesitant. If I gather them, they will be more confident that we will succeed. All right, I will wait for your news. Yan Chuan nodded. There is still a month. Why don't you rest at the Sky Saber Dojo for a while? I will let my younger brother entertain you, Song Tianzong said. There is no need. I still have matters to attend to in the Sky Saber Weave. Yan Chuan shook his head. He still had matters to attend to in the Sky Saber Weave? Song Tianzong's eyes suddenly narrowed. This was his own weave. Chapter 1174. Outside the World Massacre Sect. Yan Chuan, Bai Ditian and Guiguzi returned to the dragon carriage. Song Tianren and Goku looked curiously at the 11 people at the entrance of the hall. Each of them was wearing a suit of armor. They looked up at the sky. The leader had a scar on his face, making him look extremely ferocious. Tribulation clouds rolled in the sky. Ancient immortal tribulation? Song Tianren was shocked. These 11 people wanted to become ancient immortals? The tribulation clouds rolled and the sky darkened. Bai Qi stared at them. Roar! With a loud roar, the ground beneath his feet trembled. The long saber in his hand shot up into the sky, and a huge saber light rushed towards the tribulation clouds with monstrous killing intent. The killing intent condensed into blood lotuses that accompanied the saber light. Killing evil and condensing lotuses? Song Tianren's face sank. Boom! The vast tribulation clouds were cut in half by Bai Qi's saber. The pitch-black tribulation clouds seemed to have been dyed red by Bai Qi's saber. Breaking the tribulation with one saber? Song Tianren's face darkened. I'll leave the rest to you, Bai Qi said. Yes, my lord. The 10 of them replied. The 10 of them raised their sabers and rushed into the sky. The tribulation clouds that had been cut in half were instantly destroyed. Rumble. In a short while, the tribulation clouds completely disappeared. Is this the ancient immortal tribulation? Fuck. Are you guys cutting cucumbers? Song Tianren was speechless. This was the ancient immortal tribulation. Why did it look so easy? After cutting through the tribulation, Bai Qi brought his 10 subordinates to Yan Chuan. Sage King, it's over. What do we do next? Bai Qi smiled. Song Tianren wanted to take off his shoes and throw them at Bai Qi's face. It's over? What do we do next? What kind of tone is this? Is this tribulation a piece of cake? Thinking back to his own tribulation, Song Tianzong looked at Bai Qi as if he was looking at a monster. Wait for another month. After 1 month we will destroy the purple-green weave. Yan Chuan said. Yes. Bai Qi nodded. Bai Qi turned to look at Bai Ditian and frowned. Finally he sighed. Sage King, I wish to kill the Azure Divine King. Bai Qi said. Song Tianren was speechless. What do you mean you want to kill the Azure Divine King? Azure God King is an ancestral immortal, while you are just an ancient immortal. You want to kill Azure God King? Do you think you can kill me just because you want to? Alright, I'll leave the Azure Divine King to you, father and son. Yan Chuan nodded. Yes. Bai Qi and Bai Ditian replied. Bai Tu sure? Since he had regained the memories of his first life, Bai Qi was prepared to use his original name, Bai Tu sure. In the past, Bai Tu sure had held grudges and hatred toward Bai Ditian. However, after experiencing so much, he had gotten over it. Bai Ditian might not be his father anymore, but his wife was his mother. He could only acknowledge this father. Meng Yi, give half of the terracotta soldiers to Bai Qi. Yan Chuan ordered. Yes. Meng Yi replied. General Meng, don't worry. I'll try my best to reduce the losses of your soldiers. Bai Qi smiled. Haha, I naturally believe in Wu and Marquis' ability to lead troops. Among the generals of Dezhen, you are definitely the best. Meng Yi laughed. Bai Qi smiled. Purple Green Weave, Purple God Palace and Azure God Palace, one in the east and one in the west. Bai Qi, Bai Ditian, you two will be in charge of Azure God Palace. Yan Chuan said. Yes. The two replied. Sage King of Deqi, I'll have to trouble the Immortal Slaying Sword formation to accompany you to Azure God Palace. Yan Chuan looked at Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong nodded. All right. Gui Guzi, Meng Yi, and I will head to Purple God Palace to kill the ancestral immortal and replace him. Yan Chuan said. Yes. Gui Guzi and Meng Yi replied. Chapter 1175. Purplish Green Weave. The terracotta soldiers charged in. A large number of cultivators flew out from the coast. Where did you come from? Do you know where this is? Did you come to the wrong place? This is the purplish green weave. Which weave are you going to? Ha! Since you came to the wrong place, don't even think about leaving. Each of you will get 1 immortal stone as compensation for your offense. 1 immortal stone is enough? They offended my Zhu Gong. Each of them should get 10 immortal stones. While the disciples of Zhu Gong were scolding them, Song Tianzong had a strange expression. These people were about to die, but they didn't know? Put the arrows on the bows. Meng Yi shouted. Kakaka. 10,000 terracotta soldiers pulled their bows and arrows. What are you doing? What are you doing? Are you rebelling? Courting death. While the disciples of Zhu Gong were still in shock, Meng Yi shouted, Fire! Boom. 10,000 divine arrows quickly killed the disciples of Zhu Gong. Bai Qi. Here. Bai Qi stepped forward. You, Bai Ditian, and the Sage King of Great Qi go to Azure Deity Palace. Yan Chuan ordered. Yes. Bai Qi replied. Sun Wukong nodded. The 3 of them led the 50,000 terracotta soldiers and quickly headed to the southwest of the purplish green weave. Yan Chuan looked at Song Tianzong. Song Qianzong smiled and said, Yendi, it's not that my Sky Blade Dojo is not doing its best. After all, there are 6 weaves and it's a waste for my Sky Blade Dojo to come here. I asked my younger brother, Song Tianren, to lead the other experts of the dojo to the other weaves to fight. Yan Chuan looked at Song Tianzong and nodded. It's fine. No matter what, sect leader Song has done a lot to deal with Zhu Gong. I, Yan Chuan, am not an unreasonable person. After we take down the purplish-green weave, I'll give it to the Sky Blade Dojo to settle the grudge. Song Tianzong was stunned. Giving the purplish-green weave? Of course it would be best if he could give it to her. However, can you really succeed? Song Tianzong had some doubts in his heart, but his expression was very natural as he said, Haha, thank you very much, Yendi. Sect Master Song, where do you want to go? Help me destroy the Purple God Palace, or help Bai Qi destroy the Azure God Palace? Yan Chuan asked. Me. With Yendi's help, there's no need for a burden like me. I'll stay around and act as a lookout for you. After all, anything can happen during a battle. If there's any external interference, I'll be responsible for blocking it. Song Tianzong said. Song Tianzong clearly did not want to contribute. Yan Chuan said nonchalantly, all right. Mengi, let's go. Yan Chuan said. Yes. Rumble. The 50,000-strong army headed toward the Purple Divine Palace in the southeast. Song Tianzong stood in the air, his eyes narrowed as he watched Yan Chuan's group leave. Magnanimous. Yan Chuan is indeed magnanimous. Unfortunately, this is the Purple God King's home ground. Difficult. If you had been famous for more than 100,000 years, I might have been on your side. Unfortunately, I can only not help either side. Song Tianzong said in a low voice. At the same time, Xianying. Wang Jian had just returned after escorting Meng Rongrong and Meng Wenrua back. As soon as he returned, he was greeted with an invasion. In the south of Xianyang, 2 experts, 1 azure and 1 purple, stood between heaven and earth. The heavenly Tao circled around them as they pressed down on Xianyang. The officials of Great Zhen once again gathered in the plaza of Skyward Palace. These 2 are first-level ancestral immortals, at most second-level ancestral immortals, Li Si said with narrowed eyes. There was no fear in Lu Bui's eyes. Instead, he said excitedly, the heavens are protecting Great Zhen. In the distance, the 2 ancestral immortals looked on coldly. The heavens are protecting Great Zhen? Have the people of Great Zhen gone mad? Yan Chuan's whereabouts have been exposed. You want to go to my purple-green weave to deal with the 2 palace lords? Dream on. Since Yan Chuan is gone, Great Zhen is no longer worthy of possessing the primordial dragon vein. The azure-robed ancestral immortal said coldly. Today will be the nightmare of all of Xianyang. Go regret it in the netherworld. Ah. The purple-robed ancestral immortal said coldly. The 2 ancestral immortals came aggressively. Although they were arrogant, there was a hint of displeasure in their eyes. That was because they did not see fear or regret in the eyes of the officials. Instead, they were happy to see this. They were all grinning from ear to ear. Were these people out of their minds? Lu Bui said with a smile, the primordial dragon vein is really good stuff. Ignoring its function, just its effect alone can continuously attract ancestral immortals? That's right. The information obtained by the Sage King might be a nightmare to other dynasties, but it's too important to Great Zhen. Now that we have the primordial dragon vein, we can kill an ancestral immortal and take his position? Li Si's eyes narrowed. But who should we give these 2 ancestral immortal positions to? Lu Bui suddenly said with a smile. The officials looked at each other. Some of them did not have any thoughts, but some of them who had followed Yan Chuan from the Great Qin were eager to give it a try. Li Si thought for a moment and said, Minister Lu, you and I are officials. Great Zhen has yet to conquer the world. We should give this opportunity to the generals. All right. Lu Bui nodded. The 2 looked at each other. Wang Jian, Jin Diyu, I'll leave these 2 ancestral immortals to you. Point out the experts of your armies and prepare to attack. Don't let them escape. Lu Bui said. Meng Tian was attacking the Great Despair Holy Court. He could only give this opportunity to the 2 of them. Escape? How can we? Wang Jian sneered. Don't worry. Jin Dayu said with a smile. The 2 generals waved their hands. Immediately their subordinates flew into the sky. They charged at the 2 ancestral immortals. A bunch of ancient immortals want to kill us? Aha, the people of Great Zhen are indeed crazy. The 2 ancestral immortals said coldly. Kill. Wang Jian and Jin Dayu roared. Violet Domain, outside the Azure God Palace. The Azure God Palace was an extremely glorious palace complex. Above it there was a sea of merit and a sea of fortune. Yan Chuan led everyone to a hidden valley. In front of Yan Chuan, a black-robed figure knelt on one knee. The Skyminder guard greets the Sacred King. Sacred King, the Violet God King is in the Violet God Palace. There were originally 2 ancestral immortals in the palace, Zi Wen and Zi Wu. One could vaguely see a black-robed figure sitting cross-legged, as if he was comprehending something. Great Void Arcane Art? Great Void? What a great nothingness. Using the stars to seal this space and then shattering it, squeezing out the spatial fragments. This place no longer belongs to heaven and earth. The immortal slaying sword formation is a world within it. Are you trying to turn this entire region into nothingness? So this is the trajectory? Even the heavenly Daos were pushed out of the void. Great Void Arcane Art? No, there's also the heavenly mysteries. This isn't pure nothingness. If it was pure nothingness, it would have already begun to disintegrate the Purple Divine King. Now, Purple Divine King has only lost the power to borrow the heavenly Daos. This is more like the heavenly demon world? The black-robed figure said solemnly. Within the star area, the heavenly Daos collapsed and heaven and earth no longer existed. Gui Guzi! Yan Chuan shouted. Roar! Gui Guzi, who was covered in golden light, pounced towards Purple Divine King. Boom! Gui Guzi, who was filled with power, punched out. When he punched out, his fist seemed to emit a dragon's roar. It was extremely powerful. Roar! Why is it the same as the immortal slaying sword formation? There's no heavenly Daos? Purple Divine King suddenly revealed a trace of panic. After exchanging blows with Gui Guzi, the Purple God King was actually beaten back? No, it shouldn't be like this. Merit energy, fate energy, come. Purple Divine King shouted in shock. Ha, no need to shout. In the Great Void Arcane Art of the Sage King, you have already escaped from the weakest world. Here, everything is nothingness. Gui Guzi laughed. Rumble. Gui Guzi crazily attacked. For a moment, Purple Divine King panicked. Still want to escape? Come back for me. Thousand Dragon Explosion. Gui Guzi shouted coldly. Thousands of yellow dragons rushed out of Gui Guzi's body and rushed towards Purple Divine King. They surrounded him in the center and suddenly exploded. Boom. The huge explosion burst out millions of golden light. The 2 experts inside continued to attack each other crazily. Outer North Continent. Roaming Jade Palace. Huff. Tong Tian let out a long sigh. As expected of the sacred art jointly created by Bai Huang and Ing. No one can create it without great wisdom and courage. No, you should be called Yan Chuan in this life. Since you have shown me this sacred art, I will repay you. Tong Tian said in a deep voice. Purple Divine Palace. Gui Guzi fought Purple Divine King for an entire day. Boom. A claw grabbed Purple Divine King's head and countless yellow dragons rushed into Purple Divine King's body. The battle stopped. What? You are an ancient immortal, why is your will stronger than mine? What? Even if I have lost the heavenly Tao, I am still an ancestral immortal. I am unwilling, why? Purple Divine King howled in grief. I used to be an ancestral immortal too. Sect Master Song, the Purple Palace and Azure Palace kings offended my Xianying Empire and were killed by us. The purple-green weave is yours now. To make it easier for you to manage it, we killed all the Absolute Palace disciples at the headquarters of the 2 palaces. Quickly take the purple-green weave, Yan Chuan said. After saying that, Yan Chuan led everyone away, leaving Song Tianzong alone, sweating profusely as he digested this news. 10 days? 10 days? Are you joking? In that case, big brother, hand me over. Let me die in exchange for your safety. Song Tianren said angrily. When father and mother died, they entrusted you to me. How can I let you die? However, this time we really... Song Tianzong said with a dispirited expression. No, big brother, you have changed. This is not you. Song Tianren shouted. What? Big brother, back then you were so proud. Back then you dared to challenge the world. Back then you set the Sage of Battle as your goal. Back then you looked down on the heavenly Tao domain. Back then you were insufferably arrogant. Now why are you so fearful because of the Zhugong? This is not you. Where is your ambition? Where is your undefeatable saber heart? Didn't you say that a saber cultivator should have the ambition to challenge the world? Why did you become like this? Song Tianren called out in disappointment. When Song Tianren called out to him, Song Tianzong suddenly retreated, showing an unsightly expression. Big brother, this is not the first time. Back then in Xianyang, if it were you in the past, you would have directly fought Yan Chuan. You would not have thought too much or used too many schemes. You only used one saber strike. This is not your style. This is not you at all. I did not dare to believe it. However, I could not help but think that back then, big brother, you were afraid. Were you afraid of anyone who might be stronger than you? Did you not dare to fight him? What? Song Tianren called out again. Song Tianzong took a step back after being questioned. Panic appeared on his face. Heavenly Saber Song Tianzong, you are the Heavenly Saber. Back then you had the tyranny to challenge the world. What? Song Tianren pressed. Song Tianzong suddenly closed his eyes, showing some pain on his face. Seeing his big brother in pain, Song Tianren suddenly showed some pity in his eyes. Big brother, what? Song Tianzong asked slowly. Song Tianzong sighed softly and opened his eyes. This is a secret of mine from back then. Unfortunately, actually, your big brother can no longer raise his cultivation. Song Tianzong said in pain. What happened? Someone broke my saber heart and Dao heart. That battle left an unforgettable shadow in my heart. That saber strike. Song Tianzong said bitterly. Oh, whose saber can compare to big brother's? It's not that it can compare. It's just that it is on a completely different level. The difference is too great. Who? That person by Yen's eyes sighed back then, the Saber Demon. The Saber Demon? Yes, that group of people passed by the Heavenly Saber Dojo. Back then I was a saber fanatic. As long as there was a strong saber cultivator, I would want to exchange pointers. When I saw the Saber Demon, I pestered him to fight. However, the Saber Demon ignored me and even looked down on me. After pestering him many times, I returned empty-handed. Then, I sneak attacked him and used his daughter to force him to fight. Chapter 1178. The terracotta soldiers led the way, and Yan Chuan's dragon carriage finally returned to True Dragon Dominion a month later. Roar! Along the way the twin dragons were especially excited. Not only them but the terracotta soldiers were also very excited. Of course there were some casualties but war was unavoidable. The harvest was great. Bai Qi was born. Gui Guzi, Meng Yi, and Bai Qi each killed an ancestral immortal and passed their tribulations to become ancestral immortals. Bai Qi drove the dragon carriage with a high-spirited look on his face. Sun Wukong didn't say a word, but his brows were slightly furrowed. After entering True Dragon Dominion their speed was even faster. A few days later they arrived outside Xianyang. Far away the flames of war soared into the sky. There were 10 heavenly Daos in all directions. It was as if a certain force was trying to take over Xianyang by force. Meng Yi stopped the terracotta soldiers. Bai Qi said respectfully, Sacred King, there's a change in Xianyang. Quang. The door to the main hall opened. Yan Chuan slowly stepped into the carriage and looked into the distance. There was indeed a battle in Xianyang, but it wasn't a big scene. The invaders were only an ancestral immortal, 2 Dao gods and 10 ancient immortals. They were currently fighting with the soldiers of Xianyang. Sacred King, this is the neighboring dominion to the north, Barbarian Dragon Dominion. This is the first army commander of the Barbarian Dragon Holy Court, Barbarian Bull. He's a second-stage ancestral immortal. He clearly didn't understand the situation and rushed to Xianyang. Gui Guzi laughed. Meng Tian? Isn't he leading an army to conquer Great Void Holy Court? Yan Chuan frowned. The one fighting Barbarian Bull was Meng Tian. Meng Tian was leading a group of ancient immortal soldiers in a crazy battle. Above the sea of fate clouds, Meng Tian's statue of fate descended and merged with Meng Tian. Meng Tian's strength suddenly increased. Barbarian Bull was anxious, but Meng Tian was getting more and more excited. Seeing Yan Chuan frown, Meng Yi immediately opened his mouth and said, Holy Monarch, Big Brother's speed of leading troops is extremely fast. Perhaps the Great Extinction Holy Court's various major cities have already been taken down. Yan Chuan nodded, his brows relaxed. Sage King, I think General Meng Tian is jealous of Wang Jian and Jin Deyu's ascension to ancestral immortality. That's why he quickly subdued all the cities in Great Despair Holy Court. He didn't want to fall behind. Sage King, look, aren't Jin Deyu and Wang Jian both staring at Barbarian Bull? Not allowing the Barbarian Bull to escape? From the looks of it, they are all ancestral immortals. Gigazi laughed. Haha, that's right. Although Meng Tian is a little rash at times, she has definitely completed all the tasks that we have given her. Otherwise, she wouldn't have returned. Yan Chuan nodded in satisfaction. The terracotta soldiers were waiting in the distance. He was waiting for Meng Tian to succeed. Lord, you rushed to Xianyang as soon as you arrived. I didn't even have time to tell you that Xianyang is not to be trifled with. Barbarian Dragon Holy Court Scout's Jiaohu voice came from a distant valley. In the distance, Barbarian Bull was also speechless. Why didn't you say so earlier? General Meng Tian, I, Barbarian Bull, have offended you. Let's spar again in the future. Barbarian Bull shouted. Meng Tian spat and said, Bah, who wants to spar with you? It wasn't easy for you to come to me, how can I let you run away? If I don't kill you this time, I don't know when the next time will be. Barbarian Bull's face turned red. Bastard, with the primeval dragon vein here, there will be an endless stream of ancestral immortals coming. You have plenty of opponents, don't go too far. Barbarian Bull shouted gloomily. Yan Chuan, aren't you worried about the ancestral immortals attacking? Goku asked with a trace of surprise. Yan Chuan looked at Goku and smiled. No one can stop great perfection. Goku was slightly taken aback. Sage King of Great Perfection, please set up the Immortal Slaying Sword formation to prevent any disturbances during the examination. Besides, Skirich said that he would lend me the Immortal Slaying Sword formation for a year. A year? The end of the examination will coincide with the end of a year. Yan Chuan said. A year? Goku was puzzled but finally nodded. Alright. However, my control over the Immortal Slaying Sword formation is limited. There might be too many ancestral immortals this time. I might not be able to hold them off for too long. Don't worry, we can hold them off. Yan Chuan smiled faintly. Goku frowned. Hold them off? If he wasn't confident, how could he? Goku didn't ask any further. He merely nodded. He would do his best. If he couldn't hold them off, it had nothing to do with him. 3 days later. Meng Tian had also finished her ancestral immortal tribulation. Yan Chuan's edict was quickly announced to the world. The fifth world examination? Ever since the emergence of the primordial dragon vein, true dragon dominion had become the focus of the Outer East continent. Apart from those who went back to report, the rest of the Outer East continent scouts were extremely diligent. A month ago, Wang Jian and Jin Dayu had killed 2 ancestral immortals. Not long ago, Meng Tian had killed an ancestral immortal. Now Yan Chuan and Gigazi had returned? None of the scouts dared to be careless. Anyone with half a brain knew that the primordial dragon vein was a double-edged sword. It was beneficial to great perfection but also harmful. Soon, the experts of the various Outer East continent would arrive. With so many ancestral immortals here, great perfection would be in for a bloodbath. However, who would have thought that great perfection would be holding the examination at this time? At this time? Countless scouts were at a loss. Great perfection was already at the brink of death. How could it still be interested in the examination? As time passed, experts from various Outer East domains arrived one after another. However, with the previous 3 ancestral immortals serving as a warning, no one dared to take the lead. The various experts arrived without fanfare, but they didn't deliberately hide it either. One by one they appeared. The experts also understood that Xianying was in a precarious situation. Xianying, upper study. Yesterday, Sacred King Barbarian Dragon settled down 300,000 miles north of Great Perfection. Sect leader Tianmen settled down 320,000 miles east of Great Perfection. Sect leader Gue Yun settled down 290,000 miles west of Great Perfection. Lu Gang respectfully reported to Yan Chuan. Lu Gang, gather information on the wandering cultivators and find the ancestral immortals and Tao gods. Hand the information to Zhang Yi, and have Zhang Yi persuade the wandering cultivators to surrender. Gather as many as you can. Yan Chuan looked at Lu Gang and Zhang Yi. Understood. The two answered. Yan Chuan tapped his finger on the table and looked at Wang Jian. Wang Jian, you will be in charge of the martial examination. This subject obeys. Desolation Melt. Yan Chuan looked at Desolation Melt, who had come from the netherworld. This subject obeys. Desolation Melt said solemnly. You will be in charge of the written examination. Yan Chuan said. This subject obeys. Desolation Melt said agitatedly. Desolation Melt was the commander of Great Perfection's 8th Legion and the descendant of a sage. In the past, he had volunteered to be the commander of the 8th Legion. At the Absolute Palace's headquarters, the 10 great god kings stood in front of a large hall with extremely unsightly expressions. Before them was an azure-clothed servant. The palace master is in seclusion. Do not disturb him, the azure-clothed servant said. Still in seclusion? A god king asked anxiously. Everyone was anxious. We can't wait any longer. The palace master is in seclusion. We will go ourselves. As long as we take revenge for the azure and violet god kings, so what if we are punished by the palace master when we return? Who will go with me? A god king said with determination. I'll go. I'll go too. I'll go. The group of god kings shouted together. All right. In that case, let's go to Xianyang together and destroy Yan Chuan along with Xianyang. The god king roared. All right. Destroy Xianyang. The deaths of the violet and azure god kings were not meaningless. No one can be careless in this trip to Xianyang. Gather the Tao gods and ancient immortals and head to Xianyang together. All right. September 9th. The Immortal Extermination Sword Formation was placed outside Xianyang. The various ambitious and ruthless people were scattered around the mountain peaks, watching Xianyang from afar. Within Xianyang, a huge square was opened. On it stood 5 million examinees. At this moment, they were looking respectfully at Yan Chuan, who was sitting on the dragon throne not far away. The civil and military officials stood on both sides. Yan Chuan looked at the 5 million examinees and said in a deep voice, Martial examinees, follow Wang Jian into my universe in my palm. Literary examinees, Hua Wuling, the chief examiner, please name the questions. The world examination had officially begun. Chapter 1179. September 9th, Xianyang. With Yan Chuan's command, Wang Jian led the 2 million candidates to Yan Chuan's universe in the palm. Desolation waved his hand, and countless desks appeared before the remaining 3 million candidates. There were brushes, ink, paper, and ink stones on them. Desolation stepped forward and looked at the 3 million candidates. In each of the major cities, everyone has gone through the initial selection process. The Saint King has personally come to the scene. He hopes that everyone can eliminate all distracting thoughts and write beautiful essays. Today's test topic is saints. Desolation Hua said in a clear voice. As he spoke, he used a spell to form the word, sage. Yan Chuan looked at Desolation Hua in surprise. He handed the question to Desolation Hua and did not interfere. Saints? Yan Chuan aside, the 3 million candidates also began to think about the question. They were brewing their thoughts. Some candidates were grinding ink while thinking. Some examinees, however, quickly came up with an idea. They grabbed their brushes and officially started writing. The test topic was sage. Ambitious and ruthless people stood at the peaks of the various mountains. It had been a few days since they had arrived. At this moment, the group of ambitious and ruthless people were getting impatient from waiting. No one wanted to take the lead. Great Jin already had a certain level of strength. The first person to take the lead would only cause both sides to suffer, and the others would benefit. But if they didn't take the lead, would they just keep waiting? Would Great Jin even start the exam? This was clearly looking down on the ambitious and ruthless people. There was even a hint of humiliation in it. You still have the heart to take the exam when the enemy is right in front of you? Wasn't this a slap to the faces of the ambitious and ruthless people? Finally, one of the ambitious and ruthless people soared into the sky. A group of subordinates followed behind him. Sage King Barbarian Dragon, Third Firmament Ancestral Immortal, and his subordinates. Gigazi said. Oh. Yan Chuan looked at Sage King Barbarian Dragon in the distance. Yan Chuan Meng Tian killed one of my subordinates. Hand him over. Sage King Barbarian Dragon shouted. Yan Chuan smiled coldly and said, A puny little barbarian dragon Holy King also wants to be impudent in front of us? If you can break the Immortal Extermination Sword Formation, then come and tell me. After saying that, Yan Chuan ignored the barbarian dragon Holy King. The barbarian dragon Holy King's eyes widened. Originally, he wanted to lure the great perfection powerhouses into battle, and then lead the battlefield to the mountains where the ambitious and ruthless people were staying. He wanted to drag everyone into the battle, but he didn't expect that Yan Chuan wouldn't participate in the battle at all. Immortal Slaying Sword Formation? The barbarian dragon Holy King's eyes turned serious. However, they didn't charge in recklessly. Instead, they remained silent for a while before turning their heads and saying, Everyone, I, Man Long, am not being reckless. I'm just throwing a brick to attract jade. Xianyang is no longer the same as it was in the past. It will be difficult for my side to break through. If you want to reap the benefits of the fisherman, I don't know how long you will have to wait. Waiting like this is ultimately not a solution. Everyone please act together. Who will obtain the primordial dragon vein in the end will be decided by the will of the heavens. How about it? After the barbarian dragon holy king finished speaking, the ambitious and ruthless people frowned. He wanted to drag everyone into the battle. Although they were here to fight for the primordial dragon vein, no one said it out loud. There was still a layer of cloth covering their faces. Now, the barbarian dragon holy king was tearing down the cloth covering their faces? Many people were unhappy. In the distance, Yan Chuan narrowed his eyes. Go and invite the empress over. Yan Chuan said to a guard. Yes. That guard acknowledged and left. The ministers of the Great Perfection Empire looked at Yan Chuan in confusion. They didn't know what the holy king wanted to do. Zizi was quickly invited over. What's wrong? Zizi asked. Have a seat and watch, said Yan Chuan. Zizi nodded and looked outside. Outside, under the barbarian dragon holy king's persuasion, 3 other ambitious and ruthless people finally appeared. The barbarian dragon holy king and the 3 ambitious and ruthless people merged with the heavenly Daos, and the 4 heavenly Daos instantly connected to the world outside Xianyang. A storm was brewing outside Xianyang. The 4 ambitious and ruthless people were eyeing the center of Xianyang covetously. Let's each take one of the immortal exterminating swords, shouted the barbarian dragon holy king. All right. The 3 ambitious and ruthless people answered. The 4 ambitious and ruthless people were all ancestral immortals. Naturally, they weren't afraid of a sword formation. They flew towards the 4 directions of Xianyang. Each of them faced a divine sword that was stabbed into the ground. The 4 factions besieged Xianyang. For a moment, the other ambitious and ruthless people widened their eyes in anticipation of the result. However, what made them unhappy was that Yan Chuan sat firmly on the throne as if he didn't care about the 4 ambitious and ruthless people at all. The immortal exterminating swords pierced through the heavens and the earth. They were stabbed into the 4 corners of the primordial dragon vein's head like heavenly pillars, emitting a ruthless aura. Attack! Shouted the barbarian dragon holy king. The 4 ambitious and ruthless people attacked the immortal exterminating swords at almost the same time. Boom! A huge collision occurred. Outside the sword formation, the earth quaked and mountains shook. Boundless violent sword energy instantly exploded. For a moment, the 4 ambitious and ruthless people bore the brunt of the attack. Many of their subordinates were instantly injured by the sword energy. Under the strong light, the 4 ambitious and ruthless people's attacks couldn't shake the immortal exterminating swords at all. They only caused the swords to tremble slightly. The barbarian dragon holy king. The other 3 ambitious and ruthless people. The 4 experts were also speechless. The immortal exterminating swords? What a powerful treasure. Even the 4 ancestral immortals couldn't break through it? However, the 4 swords still trembled just now. Clearly they were still somewhat shaken. Everyone, the 4 of us aren't enough to break through this formation. Please help us break through the immortal exterminating swords formation. The swords will belong to whoever obtains them. Chapter 1180. 400 Heavenly Tao besieged Xianyang City. The aura of the Heavenly Tao was majestic. When 400 Heavenly Tao auras spread out, many cultivators felt as though the sky was falling. Fortunately, Xianyang's array was exquisite and blocked the aura from all directions. The immortal extermination sword array protected Xianyang City. Yan Chuan looked at Black God King and Song Tianzong in the distance. He did not look anxious, as though these 400 Heavenly Tao were nothing. The Great World Examination continued. Song Tianzong. Yan Chuan said in a deep voice. In the distance, Heavenly Saber Song Tianzong's expression changed slightly, but he still hid it. Yan Chuan, I know what you want to say. You still want to frame me at this time? You want me to fight with the 10 Divine Kings? Stop dreaming. In the past, you were the one who forced me. I have already told the 10 Divine Kings everything. Song Tianzong immediately shouted before Yan Chuan could. Yan Chuan smiled faintly and said, Is that so? Unfortunately, that's not what I want to say. I have someone here who has something to say to you. Song Tianzong's expression sank. Behind Yan Chuan, among the civil and military officials, there was a person wrapped in a black robe. He even used a hat to cover his face. Yan Chuan waved his hand lightly. The black-robed figure walked out. Who is it? Song Tianzong asked in a deep voice. The 10 divine kings also looked curiously at this moment. Song Tianzong's surrender had made the divine kings somewhat suspicious. Was the truth about to be revealed? The divine kings watched patiently. At this moment they were not in a hurry. Xianyang was already a trapped beast that could not escape from their charge. In front of Yan Chuan, the black-robed figure slowly lifted his hat. In the distance, Song Tianzong's expression changed greatly. Tianren? Song Tianren? Song Tianzong exclaimed. The 10 divine kings' expressions also changed. Song Tianren? Song Tianzong's younger brother? Why is he standing in Xianyang? Big brother. Song Tianren said with a bitter smile. Yan Chuan? You are despicable. You actually captured my younger brother to threaten me? Song Tianzong exclaimed. No, big brother, I did it willingly. I begged Yan Di to let me appear here. Song Tianren shouted. Willingly? Song Tianzong asked, puzzled. Taking a step forward, Song Tianren flew out of Xianyang toward Song Tianzong and the Black God King. Seeing Song Tianren fly out, Song Tianzong sighed inwardly. However, he then frowned even more deeply. How was he going to explain this to Zhu Gong? Song Tianzong? Do you brothers want to avoid offending both sides? Black God King coldly said. Black God King, there must be a misunderstanding here. Song Tianzong immediately shouted. Misunderstanding? Black God King coldly said. Song Tianzong looked at his younger brother. What happened? Big brother, it was originally us who wanted to besiege Zhu Gong. After Yan Chuan destroyed the purple-green weave, he even handed it over to us. Yan Chuan has done his utmost benevolence and duty. Why is it that big brother has to go back on his word and help Zhu Gong besiege Xianyang? Song Tianren shouted. In the surroundings, the 10 divine kings narrowed their eyes and looked coldly at Song Tianren. You bastard! What do you know? What benefits did Yan Chuan give you? What did he give you to help him so loyally? Song Tianzong immediately berated. Shaking his head, Song Tianren smiled bitterly. Yan Chuan did not give me any benefits. Big brother refused to listen to what I said, so I could only use my actions to help you. Help me? This counts as helping me? Tianren, stop messing around. Quickly come back. Song Tianzong said anxiously. No, I am not messing around. Big brother's current personality is actually all because of me. Big brother, as a younger brother, I understand. Big brother's saber heart has been broken. Big brother is no longer as arrogant as before. Big brother has become afraid of death. Why is he afraid of death? It's not because of big brother himself, but because big brother didn't care about life and death in the past. Why is he afraid of death? It's because of me. Big brother is worried that after he dies, I will be bullied. Song Tianren said bitterly. Hearing his younger brother's words, Song Tianren's original anger immediately dissipated. He sighed softly. Because of me, big brother is unable to regain his Dao heart and condense his saber heart. Big brother, your talent is better than mine, much better than mine. My path of cultivation can be said to have been completely under your protection. That was how I got to where I am today. Even when I killed the ancestral immortal back then, it was also you who killed him until he was on his last breath. Big brother, Tianren has always been proud of big brother in this life. Song Tianren's eyes slowly moistened. Song Tianzong's lips trembled slightly, and his nose turned sour. Emotions flashed in his eyes. Before father and mother died, they entrusted you to me. You are my only family in this world. How can I not take care of you? It's good that you are sensible. Song Tianzong sighed softly. Big brother, the azure purple weave is nothing. Even losing the heavenly saber weave is nothing. Big brother, Tianren owes you too much in this life. As long as you can regain your Dao heart and condense your saber heart, so what if you can give up everything? The world is so big. Why must we be limited to this place? Even if we cannot block Absolute Palace's counterattack, it is not impossible for us to leave this place. Big brother, I do not wish for you to go back on your word because of me. Big brother, in my heart, you will always be that indomitable and ambitious person. You will never compromise. Song Tianren cried out. Song Tianzong clenched his teeth, revealing a pained expression. My Dao heart is broken and my saber heart is scattered. It is useless. You are big brother's hope. As long as you can become strong, that will be enough. Song Tianzong said in pain. Song Tianren revealed a bitter smile. I will never be able to compare to big brother. Big brother, it is Tianren who is dragging you down. The Black Deity King watched coldly from the side. What deep brotherly love. Song Tianzong, so you have been lying to us all this time? Song Tianzong frowned and looked at the Black Deity King. At this moment, Song Qianzong did not want to reprimand his younger brother. He looked at the Black Deity King sullenly, not knowing how to explain. Good, good, good. Your Heavenly Saber Dojo is really bold. Indeed, the deaths of the Purple Deity King and the Azure Deity King are related to you. The Black Deity King said coldly. Black Deity King, on that day I informed them in advance. I did not. Song Qianzong said somewhat anxiously. Enough. I don't want to hear your explanation. I will give you two options. You can enter the Immortal Punishing Sword formation first and work with us from the inside. Then we will let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, we will consider you a part of the deaths of the Purple Deity King and the Azure Deity King. The Black Deity King said with a sullen expression. Song Qianzong immediately flushed red. Enter the Immortal Punishing Sword formation and work with them from the inside? This was obviously sending him to his death. Don't worry. There are so many of us. The Immortal Punishing Sword formation is nothing. After you enter, we will attack at the same time. You will be fine. The Black Deity King sneered. Enter? Was Zhu Gong trying to get rid of him after he had outlived his usefulness? No, they wanted to use Dezhen to kill him. Then Zhu Gong would be able to take over the Heavenly Saber Weave more easily. Zhu Gong did not have good intentions from the beginning? Song Qianzong was so angry that his body trembled. Are you going in or not? The Black Deity King looked coldly at Song Qianzong and turned to look at Song Tianren. Seeing the Black Deity King look at his younger brother, Song Qianzong's expression changed. Okay, I will go in. I hope you don't go back on your words. The Black Deity King looked coldly at him. All disciples of the Heavenly Saber Dojo, listen up. If something happens to me, Song Tianren will be the leader of the Heavenly Saber Dojo. Song Qianzong said. Master. A look of anxiety appeared on the faces of the disciples. Big brother, don't. Song Tianren immediately shouted. Song Qianzong smiled and said, It's okay. When I enter, Zhu Gong will attack. No. Song Tianren roared. As Song Tianren spoke, he looked at the Black Deity King. Black Deity King, I was the one who ambushed you that day. If you have anything, come at me. Song Tianren roared. As Song Tianren spoke, he swung his saber at the Black Deity King. Don't. Song Qianzong exclaimed. You are courting death. The Black Deity King snorted coldly. Suddenly, the Black Deity King extended a finger, and a strand of black light shot out, instantly shooting towards Song Tianren's forehead. Song Tianren did not block it. In fact, the earlier saber strike was fake. At this moment, Song Tianren looked at Song Qianzong. I remember that Big Brother once said that a man does not seek to live with heaven and earth, but to die a worthy death. I already owe Big Brother too much. I hope that I can help Big Brother condense his saber heart. Song Tianren said with moist eyes. Without any resistance, the black light instantly reached Song Tianren's forehead. Boom. Song Tianren's head suddenly exploded. Bisect Master. The Heavenly Saber Dojo disciples exclaimed. Countless ambitious and ruthless people in the surroundings were dumbfounded. Is this person crazy? Is he courting death? In Xianyang, many of Great Zhen's officials saw this scene and sucked in a breath of cold air. This pair of brothers is too. The Black Deity King did not expect that his finger strike would instantly explode an ancestral immortal's head. Is this person crazy? Song Qianzong stood in midair in a daze as he watched the head of the brother he had been protecting explode in front of him. Blood and brain matter splattered everywhere. Song Qianzong's entire body was trembling. I already owe Big Brother too much. I hope that I can help Big Brother condense his saber heart? I hope that I can help Big Brother condense his saber heart? I hope that I can help Big Brother condense his saber heart? The last sentence kept echoing in Song Qianzong's mind and his head buzzed. Son, we can't avoid this great famine. Yesterday, to feed you, your father cut off the meat on his leg and gave it to you. Your father is gone and your mother is dying. If you are hungry, eat us. Remember, you must take care of little brother until he grows up. You must. There is no water here. If we die, release our blood and store it in a gourd. Otherwise it will solidify. You must live on. Take good care of little brother. Big brother, where are father and mother? You said that father and mother left. When will they return? Big brother, I can't cultivate anymore. It's fine as long as I am as strong as you. Just protect me. I don't want to cultivate anymore. Big brother, my talent is not as good as yours. Don't worry about me. Eat this vermilion fruit. Eat it and protect me. Song Qianzong's head buzzed and his scalp went numb. Song Qianren's headless corpse fell from midair. A few disciples quickly picked it up. Little brother is dead? Tianren is dead? Song Tianzong's eyes suddenly turned bloodshot. A stifling aura surged from his entire body. Overwhelming hatred brewed in Song Tianzong's heart. Brr. Song Tianzong raised his head and roared. As he roared, surging saber chi gathered around Song Tianzong. The surging saber chi surrounded Song Tianzong and gradually formed a huge pillar that reached the sky. This saber-shaped pillar pierced the 9 heavens. An extremely sharp aura surged out. Saber heart. The scattered saber heart quickly gathered together with this saber-shaped pillar. Fear of death. At this moment, Song Tianzong no longer had any fear of death. All he had was boundless hatred. Revenge. Revenge for his little brother. Lunatic. The Black Deity King said coldly as he looked at Song Tianren's headless corpse. Song Tianzong looked at the Black Deity King, his eyes filled with hatred. What? A coward like you still wants revenge? Tiske. The Black Deity King said coldly. I want your life. Song Tianzong's face was completely distorted. He slashed down with his saber. The huge saber-shaped pillar that reached the sky also slashed at the Black Deity King in a frenzy. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.